Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Apex Racing TV, and welcome to the 2024 Radical World Finals. Today, the best of the best in the world of Radical SR10 racing on the iRacing platform are here to compete for some prizes and bragging rights for the whole year. We'll be crowning World Finals winners today, and it all begins right now. My name is Ron Mons. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Aaron Smith, and in the virtual production hall we have Samuli Kumo. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's action, let's briefly run through how things are going to work today. We've got 4 races for you today, 2 AM races and 2 pro races. We've got 2 separate racetracks that we'll be visiting today. Virginia International Raceway will play host to the first 2, and later on we'll be running at Interlagos. The races are all 30 minutes long, with a solo 10-minute long qualifying session for each of them. So with the blueprint set up, here's the schedule for today. First up, coming up right now, we have the first AM race of the evening. Following this, we'll have the first pro race, and then we'll re-rack it and run it back again for the final 2 races to decide our World Final champion. And of course, all throughout today's broadcast, we'll keep you up to date as how the math is working for our prospective champions. So with that lengthy explanation out of the way, let's get into this first race. Now, Aaron, in both the European Championship that you covered and the Americas Championship that I covered, we had a really intriguing AM class to follow in both. In the European Series, it was Brit Adam Locke winning the AM Championship, while in the Americas Series, it was Andy Vocal sealing the deal a race early. So now, entering this race, despite the fact we've only got one of them racing right now, so we see Adam Locke in a 555 car coming out of turn number 1, I think there's still going to be a really intriguing day of racing action for this AM category, and as we saw this past Friday, Aaron, VIR can put on some really incredible racing with these SR10s. So what are your thoughts heading into the first race of the day?
Well, I'm very much looking forward to this, both of these first 2 races. As we saw on Friday, that SR10 Radical Esports race was absolutely amazing, and Tom Euler, the man currently on top of the sheets in this practice session, actually managed to get his first win ever in one of our broadcast sessions, I believe. And well, the momentum is definitely carrying into this session, as he's currently 8/10 quicker than any other driver at the moment. Will that translate into qualifying and into the race? We shall see. Very, very difficult to pull a gap away at this track, as the slipstream in this car is just so powerful. Dirty air also can be a factor. We saw a couple drivers coming through the South Bend and into the S's as well, really struggling to follow each other because that dirty air just catches them out. They run ever so slightly wide, and because this is such an old school, you know, very punishing racetrack, one tiny mistake, there's no runoff anywhere, just grass and then a wall. It's I kind of like that though. It's I think it's what us drivers really prefer. A nice, challenging racetrack that, just offers some good racing, but is also punishing if you get it wrong.
Yeah, it is an absolutely brilliant racetrack, VIR, with some checkered history as well, Aaron. I remember we were talking about this after the Friday broadcast here on Apex Racing TV, about the history of this racetrack, how from the 70s all the way up until pretty much 2000 when the track reopened, it was abandoned. It was pretty much just a chicken farm, but now it is a wonderful motorsports edifice and resort as well, and it's going to play host to the first 2 races of this evening. Currently in the midst of this practice session, with only about 15 seconds left on the clock, as you just mentioned, Euler looking to carry that momentum over from a brilliant result in that Friday official broadcast here on Apex just the other day. Currently at the top of this practice session, Dorian Lievre in P2, Gabriel Berger rounding out your top 3 as it stands at the moment. The European champion of Adam Luck, currently slotted in the 5th position. You can see some racers up and down the grid representing a whole bunch of different countries. Got some equal representation of both drivers in the European Series and the Americas Championship, giving us a pretty compelling day of racing action to be sure. But as we click over to this qualifying session, I want to ask you this, Aaron. What do you think is going to be a big pitfall that these drivers look to try and avoid in this qualifying session we have coming up?
Themselves, probably. We saw on Friday that this track is very, very punishing, like I just mentioned, and that qualifying session kind of showed it. Some drivers really just over pushing the limits of this car, and if you do that, I think I described it on Friday, it's very similar to the British tracks we have in this country, like Alson Park and Cadwell Park. It's very similar to that, where it's fairly narrow, and you go slightly wide, push the car slightly over the limit, and that's your lap done and potentially session over. And the off tracks here, well, you're not going to be pushing the brinks of track limits. Again, it's just going off the track that is the big issue. And when this car is full to the brim of fuel, like we're going to be running in this qualifying session, all fixed setups, all of our drivers running the exact same one, just like it is on Friday, as that is one of the drivers, Guy Robertson and Fernandez. They're both having issues on their out laps. That's not a great way to start this qualifying session already for those guys. But it's corners like South Bend at turn 10 where you really do have to push the car all the way to the outside of the track to gain the most amount of time. But, do you want to take that risk, or do you just want to start well in this race? Do you just want to set a banker lap and put yourself in the midst of the pack? Or do you want to go for it, risk it, go for that pole position? But, it's either going to be first, second, or third, or right down at the back of the grid.
And that's another thing that these drivers are looking to try and get themselves out of in this qualifying session. The mid-pack heading through turn number 1. I mean, Aaron, I'm not sure. I'm trying to harken my mind back to see whether or not we were on this broadcast together. Actually, I think it may have been me and David Sampson, in fact. It was a couple of seasons ago for the Apex Racing League GT3 trophy, and there was about a 25-car-ish pileup coming out of turn number 1 around this racetrack. It's one of those corners where it's so inviting to try and go for an overtake, but you want to get done commandingly, because that grass runoff area, as it is throughout most of this racetrack, it just falls away from you. So you hit that grass and you just take a one-way trip to that outside tire barrier. So turn 1, that is going to be a real trouble spot for these drivers, especially at the beginning of the race. Don't want to be too aggressive, because otherwise you may have something like that happen, but at the same time, you don't want to take it too easy either, otherwise you're going to just find yourself getting chewed up and spat at by the oncoming field. But these drivers starting their first qualifying laps, that's Tom Mueller, full commitment, hang through South Bend of turn number 10. This is Oak Tree of 11 and 12. Sadly, that Oak Tree no longer there. Got struck by lightning back in 2015, I believe, so no longer the tree in which that corner was named after has been completely vaporized. But Euler going down this back straightaway, which is going to be another point of contention here, Aaron.
Yeah, this is going to be the big one to watch out for in the race. We saw it many times heading into roller coaster. We saw about 4 or 5 incidents through here, and about 2 or 3 of them were for the lead of the race, and I'm expecting something similar to happen in both the races that we're going to have here at VIR tonight, as Tom Mueller finishing his first qualifying lap, now coming up to the line. That lap looked medium push. It didn't look like he was going full balls to the wall, but definitely was putting the paces through that SR10 and those Michelin tyres, and currently goes provisional pole. Of course, out of only 2 people to currently set a lap, him and Oterholt separated by about a second. And this is the lap where I expect Euler to start pushing the limits of this car. And you can really push the limits through turn 3 there. That's kind of the only part of the track where you can use sort of the outside of the track. It's pretty much the only corner that has any runoff of any kind, and you can see a lot of drivers using it. Gabriel Berger there, another driver who was very, very strong throughout this entire European Radical Series. So was Lelive, who currently pops himself into 2nd place. Lelive genuinely could have been the overall championship winner if he had just had that little bit more consistency throughout the whole season. The only AM driver who actually managed to win a race overall, and it was at Spa, and he literally crossed the line, I think, to win for about, I think it was a few thousandths of a second. That race was absolutely amazing, and I highly recommend people go back and watch that one. It was about 2 months ago, I think, and Lelive just somehow managed to win that 45-minute race, and it was beautiful. Can he do something similar today? Well, he's got to set a decent qualifying lap, and well, 2nd place so far is not too bad to start with.
Yeah, Lelivre is a very fast driver in Radical SR10s. And I gotta say, harkening my mind back to earlier on this season and a couple of months ago, well, not in this season, because of course it's a one-off event off the back of the European and America's Championship, but harkening my mind back through this year on Apex Racing TV, I remember when Dorian Lievre first joined the Radical world, so to speak, because, I mean, Aaron, both of us have been on those Radical official broadcasts for many, many moons. The first one I ever did was actually my first ever broadcast, all the way back in early March of 2023. But I remember when Lievre first got into a Radical SR10 in a race that I was covering, and I was really impressed by the Frenchman. He is a quick driver, and he's also pretty quick in a similar race car to this one, the LMP3 car in the European Sports Car Championship, a series that was just covered here on Apex Racing TV throughout this past season. He was very quick in the LMP3 category in the races that he showed up with, but you hit the nail on the head, Aaron. He is a little bit inconsistent at times, a very fast racer, do not get me wrong, but he can be a little bit of a hothead at times. But if he can keep his head cool and on his shoulders, he'll be on for a really good result in these 2 races here today. And, you know, speaking of some people that you see in the Friday official broadcast, is J.R. Gregory, our colleague there. J.R. is running in this class, as he was running in the AM class in the Americas Championship all throughout this past season. Always nice to see JR at there on the racetrack and representing us Radical broadcasters on that Radical racetrack well. I remember, God, it was a couple of seasons ago when I was running in the Radical Esports Cup official race at Sebring a couple of seasons ago. I had retired from those broadcasts after doing them for about a year, and then decided to get behind the wheel for a top split race and have it be known that I got my shins kicked in. So JR put in a pretty good lap time at the moment, very close to Adrian Fernandez, not to be confused with the former Mexican IndyCar driver. Adrian Fernandez, the American, currently slotted in 8th at the moment in this qualifying session with only about 3 minutes left to go, but Euler showing up the pace that he had in that practice session earlier, currently on the provisional pole with Gabriel Berger, the Brit, in the number 25 car, jumping up to that front row.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to see more from Tom Euler throughout this last European Championship season. He started off the championship very, very dominantly in those early months from February all the way until about June, and was extremely quick. And then his season just kind of took a bit of a turn for the worse, and we never really saw the true pace of Tom Euler really ever again. And well, it's good to see that he's found his mojo back again, and he's showing up all these AMs very similarly, like I said, to the beginning of this European Championship season, where he was just so dominant. And off the back of that win on Friday, he really is just loving this Virginia International Raceway circuit. And half a second between himself and Berger nearly. He's still got one more lap to set, so it could be even bigger, as he's only got about a few corners to go. He sets a purple Sector 1, a 3/10 in Sector 1 alone, quicker than Gabriel Berger. So this lap could be a big one, although pretty much every other sector has been a bit iffy from Tom Euler. But is it going to be the big boy lap that we all hope it can be as he comes across the line? I don't think it's going to be an improvement. No, it was just a fraction slower. Just a few hundredths of a second, about 300ths there. But still, I don't think he'll be, oh, I didn't improve my lap time. He's still 4/10 ahead. So I think he's definitely the man to beat going into this next race.
And Gabriel Berger just finished up his final qualifying lap. 4 laps allowed for these drivers. Berger has completed those and did not take a significant bite out of Euler's gap at the moment. Waiting for some more drivers to cross the line now. I'm not sure if anyone is going to be able to challenge Euler for the pole position in this race with only 30 seconds left to go in this qualifying session. And now, since it is a solo 4-lap session, there is no added time unlike you would see in an open session. As soon as that 10 minutes hits 10 minutes, you're done. All the cars get yoinked back to pit lane by the iRacing gods, and then we'll be up and ready to go for the 30 minutes of racing action that we have coming up for just one of 4 races that we have. A little bit different from how the European and Americas races used to go. Had a sprint race, which was 15 minutes long there, and then a 45-minute long feature. Here, splitting the difference, going with 30 minutes, which I think is a really good distance for these drivers. Won't have to worry about pit stops, I believe. However, these drivers have a whole lot of their competitors to worry about and a whole lot of corners to worry about as well around this track. 20 corners in all, and that's going to give us a really exciting day of racing action, which is set to begin in just a couple of moments' time. But Tom Euler going to grab the pole position, the German behind the wheel of the number 8 car, going to be joined on the front row by Gabriel Berger, Dorian Lievre in 3rd, Christopher Alderholt starting this race in 4th, Adam Locke, the reigning European AM champion, in 5th, Charles Krasik in 6th, J.R. Gregory going to be starting this race in 7th, Gunnar Stenström going to be starting this race in 8th, Damian Guy in 9th, Adrian Fernandez rounding out your top 10. Then we have Guy Robertson in 11th, Cedric Oyahan in P at 12, Stefan Mellis starting this race in 13th, Luis Pires going to be starting this race from the 14th position. That rounds out your grid. There are no other starters in this field. Yeah, we'll talk about that at some point between now and the end of this broadcast. But nevertheless, ready to get things up and rolling for this first race. And now, as you usually see in the world of Radical SR10s on iRacing, a standing start. So that's going to be even more of a treacherous run into turn number 1, dealing with cold tires, which from my experience can bite you hard in these Radical SR10s. But also, turn 1, just having a pack of race cars covered by barely any air, that is going to be a pretty daunting thing in the horizon for these racers. You cannot win this race on lap 1 through turn number 1, but you sure can lose it. We saw some incidents heading into turn number 1 during the Friday official broadcast just the other day. May see that here at some point during the 2 races that we have around this racetrack. First up is the AMs. Coming up is going to be the pros, but right now we are waiting for this green flag to come out. Gonna wait a little bit. So there's a someone named well, we'll call him Adrian Smith in 15th. He is behind a microphone instead of behind the wheel, and so as a result, he is not going to be joining us on the starting grid. Aaron. So anyways, ready to get things up and rolling for the first race of the evening. A standing start around a troubling racetrack, and we got some champions to crown, but the green flag's that. The drivers are on their way. The smoke coming up in the air. Some wheels spin a little bit farther in the back. The drivers having to manage that very early on. They're 3 wide. Now with Euler, he's going to be leading them comfortably into turn number 1. Lievre, Otterholt, and Berger trying to battle hard as Locke, trying to get a move done on Berger. They're side by side coming out of turn number 1. Looks like they're single file out by the time they get into turn number 3. But Euler with a dream start in this race, gonna be leading them comfortably thus far on this first lap.
Yeah, that's exactly what he wanted. That is not what Krasik wanted, as he's gone straight on at turn 4 there, and he's going to fall all the way to the back of the pack as Stenström there trying to gain back a few places that he'd lost on those opening few corners, but still down to 10 from 8th place. Everyone else, though, still a fairly clean start. Gabriel Berger, though, down 3 places. That's really not a good start for the Brit, and not what he wanted at all. He's got some work to do over these next 30 minutes. And yeah, 30 minutes, that is one of the longer races that these Radical guys have experienced in a long, long time, as, you know, the races that we normally did on Friday only last between 20 and 25 minutes. 30 minutes, just a little bit longer. These guys are going to have to deal with the consequences of that. Those tyres are going to be screaming out for help as we get towards the end of this race. But down this back straight, no one really close enough to go for some moves, which is quite surprising on this opening lap. Everyone shuffling out, everyone already spreading out. And maybe within the next few laps, we'll start to see them close up as the slipstream takes into effect. But Tom Mueller already a second out in the lead, and that is exactly the start that he would want.
Oh, that is an absolute dream start for the German, completing the first lap of the race with a 9/10 of a second, teetering now to 1 second gap to himself and Dorian Liefre. That is a dream start for the German, looking at a side-by-side fight now, and contact heading down into turn number 1. That's Gunnar Sennström making contact with Stefan Mellis. So the two European drivers making contact heading down into turn number 1. Looked like Sennström tried to get a move done, but the driver of the number 15 car overcooked it, locked up, and just took a one-way trip into the side of Mellis's race car. That is an easy mistake to make in these Radical SR10s. That brake pedal is so difficult to manage. You have about a 5% window between not pulling up in time or just locking up and spearing into one of your competitors or a barrier. So Sennström unfortunately getting struck by that silver bullet heading down into turn number 1 for just a second time in this race, as we see a fight maybe brewing between Luck and Berger for P4 and P5.
Of course, these guys know each other very well. They are teammates, in fact. So I can imagine that perhaps some team orders might come into effect, as Gabriel does indeed look like the quicker driver on this occasion. So as we head down this back straight, is there going to be any such team orders? There's a bit of smoke in the background. Someone's had an off as Berger pulls towards the inside. I think they're going to be allowed to race, but I think Adam just was very easy. A lock up there from Gabriel Berger. He's got to be careful. These guys do not want to be making contact this early on in the race. Still, we're only about a 10th through it. Still got another 27 minutes to go. And the gap from them to Otterholz in front is just getting bigger and bigger. Are they going to continue to fight? What is Adam Locke going to do here? I think he is pulling alongside. He's going to give it a go and lets him back through, interestingly enough. I thought Gabriel would have free reins to run off there, but Adam just passed him straight back again. So very weird team strategy from these guys. Maybe they're using the slipstream to each other's advantage. That's Damien Guy having an off into turn 1. That looks to be all by himself. Managed to rejoin safely, but some very weird team orders there from the Project 91 team.
Ooh, as we see a near collision there, as we see Guy Robertson go off the track. That was Gunnar Sennström that nearly came to blows. I believe he was going side by side with, I think it was Luis Pires, heading down into NASCAR bend of turn number 3. And here is a replay following the number 15 car, heading his way through turn number 2 right now. There's such a tricky corner to try and get right. Oh, that just looked like a little bit of a shimmy sham from both of those racers. Sennström not having a good day. Pires, who from my experience as the commentator for the Americas Series, really just out here running the laps and keeping it clean, but he's not a very fast racer, as we nearly saw him come to blows with Krasik heading through turn number 10 just a couple of moments ago, locking up like it's going out of style. I think there may possibly be a little bit of damage on that race car because he is very slow, as we see another spin from Sennström. That's one big thing with these SR10s, Aaron, is the fact that as much as cold tires can be a real detriment, overheated tires can be a big one as well. Spins coming out of Oak Tree, maybe going to lose out on a spot. These were the two that came to blows hanging into turn number 1 not terribly long ago. Let's see if heading into the heavy braking zone of Roller Coaster of turn number 14, they get away with this fairly scot-free. Looks like they will. But getting back to the point that you were going to mention in reference to these two as they continue to battle, Locke and Berger side by side hanging into turn number 1. Berger going to try and get the move done to slip his way up into 4th. It looks like he's not going to get it done successfully as he has a mega sideways snap of oversteer coming through turn number 1. But I gotta say, Aaron, I am equally as perplexed about this strategy as you are, because in terms of pace, it's kind of split between the two of them. Those two are the ones battling for the AM Class Championship in the European Championship. They're very fast racers, do not get me wrong. They're teammates as well. And in terms of pace thus far in this race, seems like they're pretty evenly matched. They're going tit for tat in terms of their best laps of the race. So I'm not really sure why they're battling as hard as they are. I feel like team orders, as much as it is a dirty word, they may be looking at these drivers battling hard and be like, hey, look, guys, just try and settle who's going to be the one to try and challenge for the front. We see Liefre have a big moment, locking up into Oak Tree. Going to lose out on second to Otterholt. So that's a mistake from Lievre. He was losing time to the back of Euler, but now loses a spot to Alderholt.
Yeah, maybe the Frenchman just trying to push it a little bit too hard to keep tabs with Euler there, but, you know, judging by his qualifying pace, I don't think anyone's going to be keeping tabs with Euler anytime soon. It could be game, set, match already. 3 seconds is now nearly the lead for the German. And, well, it's just been a dream start for him. As you saw there, Lelive just going slightly too deep into Oak Tree. A very, very easy mistake to make. You have to push the car to the absolute limit on the brakes through that corner, and you're turning and braking at the same time, which is just a recipe for, oh no, me brakes have locked up. So I'm not surprised that we've seen that from one of the top drivers even. We're probably going to see it a few more times over the course of these next 23 minutes. So like I was mentioning a few laps ago, the gaps are already opening up like an absolute treat. And, well, at least with this, as that's Oyahon going for a cheeky spin. I'm not sure where that is. I think that's at turn 1. As he makes that mistake and loses a few places because of it. He's now down to 9th. The only current Canadian in the entire lobby, as that's Damien Guy making a mistake as Krasic goes on past Oyahon into 9th place. Can he now get into 8th and overtake Guy? Very, very looks likely as we come through this S section in the middle part of the lap here. We've seen a few overtakes through here, and it's terrifying to watch, but it can be done, as I don't think Krasic will go for it this time, as really there's not any room for 2 cars to go side by side through there. As now we head through South Bend. I think something might have happened to JR Gregory, unfortunately.
JR.
Coming out of Oak Tree, he's facing the wrong way. And, well, has he gone too deep at that corner as well?
Yeah, I think he was battling with Adrian Fernandez at the time. The driver of the number 7 car now running in 7th as a result of this incident. Let's take a look at the replay here, Aaron. Heading down into Oak Tree, you can see Fernandez behind. He began a snap of oversteer coming out of the corner, touched that curb, overcorrected a little bit, and a light kiss into the Motul barrier there. Well held from JR to prevent that from being a major collision coming out of the corner, but a simple little mistake. An easy one to be made for sure, but sadly JR getting hit by that silver bullet coming out of Oak Tree. Losing out on only 1 position though, and I don't think there's any major damage on that race car. So I think outside of a lot of lost time, he's gotten away with that fairly scot-free. Looking at this though, Lievre finding himself in the midst of an absolute hornet's nest. Running in 3rd, he's about 0.2 of a second behind Alderholt, who you can see at the front of this train. There is Christopher Alderholt in the number 3 car. He finds himself as a leader of this pack, involving himself, Dorian Lievre, Locke, and Berger. So despite the fact that Locke and Berger were slowly losing touch with these two, have a feeling there may have been another mistake, possibly involving Alderholt, because he was only about 2 seconds off the leader of Euler not terribly long ago. However, Lievre gonna try and increase that gap even more as they go side by side, battling through Oak Tree. That's gonna drag those two like a parachute. One of these drivers is going to get hung out to dry, heading down this massively long back straightaway. Is it going to be Lievre? He doesn't have the draft assistance from anybody, or is it going to be Alderholt? They're now going 3 wide. Look at Adam Locke risking it for the biscuit, heading down the back straightaway off into Roller Coaster. They clear out. That was some smart driving from Christopher Alderholt to back out of that. He wanted nothing to do with the absolute madness heading down into Roller Coaster just a few moments ago. Getting shuffled out is Alderholt. Getting it. No positions gained is Lievre. Locke showing some stones to go 3 wide of that section of the racetrack.
Yeah, that was a very ballsy overtake from Adam Locke, and the driver who I was saying earlier on should just let his teammate through. Yeah, I'm glad he ignored me. He's currently in 2nd, although just about to lose that as Lievre locks up slightly going into turn 1, trying to go for the overtake, and yet still manages to get it. And, well, Lievre definitely does look the quickest out of these 4 drivers here. And will it be a matter of the fact that everyone will just have to try and keep up with him? Or is it just going to be a battle for the last place on the podium now? We'll pay attention to this one, as Lievre definitely is going to be on the charge. I mean, not for P1, obviously. I think Thomas, 5.5 seconds. I don't think anyone is getting near him unless some catastrophic thing happens to him. Maybe he'll get struck by lightning at Oak Tree. I don't know. What are the chances? Is lightning even in iRacing? I don't think so. As Lievre pushing the car maybe a bit too much there through South Bend. Going very, very wide, and as
Oh,
does
Locke.
Adam Locke. They're all making mistakes now as we head through Oak Tree and onto the back straight.
Locke going off the track, very lucky to keep that car going in a straight line and only losing out on a couple of seconds and a few positions, so very lucky for Locke to have that off-track excursion and not have anything major break out of it. Gotta say, as much as we did see that chaos 3 wide a matter of just 1 lap ago, it's somewhat smoothened out involving these drivers. They're just about in the same positions they were about 5 laps ago. Leavre in P2, Alderholt in 3rd, Berger and Locke rounding out your top 5, and actually wrapping a small low bow around that storyline involving the Project 91 racing team drivers. Heard from a team manager in the other YouTube chat, and by the way, everyone in the YouTube chat, thank you very much for tuning into this broadcast on Apex Racing TV here today. Not going to have any team orders between those two. They have the green light to battle hard, so maybe giving us a fantastic show, maybe famous last words, but nevertheless, those two drivers still running in a good position, and they are slowly reeling in Alderholt, who's slowly losing touch of Lievre, as that gap now is ballooned to about 0.8 of a second between those two drivers in the podium spots.
Yes, it all just changed very, very quickly within a matter of a few corners. Lievre just pushed it ever so slightly too much through South Bend. As you can see, they're just going slightly wide, and Adam Locke, to be fair, kind of followed him, and then I think going through here, a little bit of dirty tyres, put him off, and he made that mistake and let Otterholt back through into 3rd place, and also his teammate up into 4th, and it's still fairly close between all of these 4 cars. I don't know if it's going to be close enough to see any side-by-side action as we head into turn 14, but you never know. The radical slipstream power it knows no bounds. It is really ridiculous, as Otterholt is gaining extremely quickly on Lelive, as he might go for a move here, but just was about a car length too far back. And we have seen that happen a few times on Friday, where some drivers just misjudge how close they can get into the roller coaster, and it just ends in absolute chaos. And luckily that time Otterholt, I think, kind of saw that, backed out of it, and avoided any kind of big incident. But now he's under pressure from Berger behind, as he looks to put himself up onto the podium, but again, just not close enough to go for that move. He is very close though, going through turn 1, nearly gave him a love tap at the rear, but Otterholt's still just about holding on to that last podium spot, as Lelive is not pulling away as quick as I'd expect it to.
Yeah, this battle is still going to be intense. Lievre not kicking on those hyper jets to pull away from that pack, which may be a fate worse than death, just considering the absolute hornet's nest that he finds himself the leader of at the moment. Coming to the halfway mark slowly but surely, about 35 seconds until we hit that halfway mark of this first race of the day. Lievre holding on to the P2 spot now, 6 seconds back at Tom Mueller, who's entirely checked out, and I'm not sure if there's anything that will possibly be able to derail his chances, as side by side heading into Oak Tree is Berger, getting a move done on Christopher Alderholt. He gets it done successfully, coming out of the corner. A little bit of contact, though, I think there was, between Berger and Alderholt as they went side by side. You can see the weaving now, trying to break that slipstream. Alderholt gonna try and pull to that inside line. Look at Locke, though. He's gonna try and have a case of deja vu. Go 3 wide, hang down the back straightaway. Is Lightning going to strike twice, or is he gonna strike the barrier? He gets the 2-for-1 deal heading down into the roller coaster bend. Well done from Adam Locke. That right there is a champion's maneuver from the driver of the 555 car.
Well, that's the second time that he's done that move today, and, well, this time, can he actually manage to make it stick and hold on to that 3rd place? The unfortunate thing now is they've lost so much time to Lelive, having done that fighting down at turn 12, that the slipstream is going to be not strong. And big contact there with Adam Locke. So once again, Adam Locke faltering. I mean, of course, it's not his fault that time, but again, going for an amazing move, putting himself up into 3rd place, and again falling back down to 5th, but this time with bigger consequences. Has he got any damage to that radical car? I don't think it was a significant enough hit to warrant any damage, but let's take a look at a replay. I think Otterholt was trying to go towards the inside, and then Adam kind of just moved across. And I guess it's just one of those where Adam was ahead, to be fair. Ota Holt wasn't really alongside, but I mean, moving like that under braking, you're kind of putting yourself at risk. So I think it's just one of those racing things where I think Adam kind of probably after the race will take responsibility for, as he's sliding his way through Oak Tree, really fighting the limits of that car and probably driving a little bit frustrated now, as his race has gone from good to again, as Ota Holt and Berger now go side by side. Berger putting himself now into that third place spot. And yeah, going back to that incident, I can't really put too much blame on Ota Holt, but I also can understand it from Adam Locke's perspective. So I think nothing should happen with that, and just accept that that happens sometimes in racing. But Adam probably will feel a bit hard done by.
Yeah, I gotta say there, Aaron, I am absolutely with you. It was a racing incident. You could assign blame to both of those drivers, and really both of them could have done something a little bit different to avoid that contact heading down into turn number 1. But in reference to Locke, it doesn't matter where that falling anvil comes from, whether you did it to yourself or it got dropped on your head by someone else. And if you're the one with the dent, you're the one that's going to have the headache in the morning. So Locke dropping down to 5th. He's now about, the quick math in my head, don't fail me now, public school education, 4 seconds back of Ota Holt in 4th. Him and Berger, though, continuing to battle hard. They're now officially losing touch of Lievre, running in 2nd. He's still 6 seconds back of Euler, not losing out on a terrible amount of time to the leader of the race of Tom Euler, who are following right down the number 8 car. However, he's certainly shaken off the fight of Berger, Ota Holt, and what used to be Locke, shaking those drivers off like a bad case of fleas. So he is going to be trying to pull away and remain in that P2 spot all the way up until the checkered flag. Of course, he probably wouldn't mind a win, though, but Berger going off the track, heading into Oak Tree. That's going to send him back behind his Project 91 teammate. So it seems like these two have been linked at the hip all throughout this race. When one of them gets struck by a falling anvil, the other one gets struck by a falling anvil shortly thereafter. I think there must have been a mistake all of his own doing for Berger, carrying a lot of speed into the corner, sideways, slideways, just taps the barrier. Don't even think he got paint chip as a result of that contact. But either way, Berger going to go off the track and slipping back behind his teammates.
Yeah, we've seen that mistake happen a few times, but haven't seen that specific mistake. I think he just maybe snatched a rear brake. I mean, you know, turning and braking is, like I said earlier, just a recipe for, oh dear, I'm going to hit a barrier probably, as Oyahan manages to get past Damien Guy there for 8th place, as they're kind of the closest battle on track at the moment. And apart from that, I think it's Krasik and Stenstrud who's fairly close to one another. Robertson and Perez as well. They're battling for the last few places on the grid. But pretty much from about 8th upwards, so everyone's kind of checked out. They're all in their own little worlds, as Guy and Oyahan still fighting it out for 8th place. Guy round the outside. Very brave overtake from Damien Guy. Very, very impressive. That was a move to take your hat off. And I think even Oyahan probably can attest to that move. That was very, very brave from the Brit. And now, well, can he hold on to that 8th place? As I think Oyahan was the overtaking car initially. And probably looks like the quickest car at the moment between these two. But Damien still giving it a fair old go.
Yeah, this is still a pretty good show from him. Saw him involved in that small little off-track excursion earlier on. I believe he also went off the track during the qualifying session. So it hasn't been a completely smooth day for the driver of the number 28 car, but still running strong in the 8th position as it stands at the moment. Got the fight between himself and the Canadian of Oyahan between now and the checkered flag, but battling with control of his race car as he has a mega sideways snap heading through the braking zone into Oak Tree. That's going to set up a side-by-side fight between these two drivers. Who's going to prevail? Is it going to be the Brit of Guy, or is it going to be the Canadian of Cedric Oyahan? Heading down the back straightaway side by side into turn number 14, just a couple of moments time. Who's going to get the move done to slip their way up into 8th? Oyahan going to have that inside line, but Guy a little bit more opportunistic on the brakes. They'll still be side by side on corner exit, heading through roller coaster down the hill now through turn number 16 into Hog Pen in just a couple of moments time. They're still going to be battling hard. Aaron, that ended in disaster in the Friday official broadcast, but these drivers are still side by side, coming out of the final corner onto that start-finish straightaway. That has brought in Senstrand into this fight, so they've now got a 3-horse race on their hands, heading down still side by side into turn number 1. Guy Oyahan, Damien Guy trying to hold it around the outside and remain in P8 after that sideways snap heading into Oak Tree just a couple of moments ago. Senstrand now going to get involved in this fight in the number 15 car. Looks like those handling woes that affected him earlier on have finally gone the way of the Dodo Bird, as he nearly went for a move heading into NASCAR Bend. Guy, though, remaining in P8, as Senstrand now trying to battle with Oyahan for 9th.
Oh, I definitely think Stenstridge could have gone for the move there, as Oyahan is all over the place right now, really struggling for control of his SR10 Radical car, as Damien Guy has just managed to pull away ever so slightly, coming through the S's here now into South Bend. Very, very difficult to follow through here, and all three of these drivers seeming taking it very easy through here. Now into Oak Tree Corner, as we've seen many incidents through here already today. Very, very easy to get it wrong, but very satisfying when you get it right, as Oyahan very, very close now and is already pulling alongside Damien Guy. And Stenstrad, if he plays this right, can slingshot past the pair of them. It's going to be risky as we come towards the end of the straight, but I think I can hear him lifting slightly, and yes, he's taking this one easy. Not surprised, as Ron mentioned, many incidents were had through Roller Coaster Corner on Friday, and these guys probably know that and do not want to repeat at all, as well the gaps are already big enough in this race. They do not want to be making them even bigger.
Yeah, I think turn number 14, it's a corner where trying to overtake there, it's like building a house on quicksand. You need to be there for like just no time at all. Otherwise, you're going to be in a world of trouble. Side by side still, heading down into turn number 1, and a sideways snap well held from Damien Guy to keep that car going in a straight line. I have no idea how in the world he managed to keep that car on the racetrack, but his front tires have been reduced down to rectangles. He's lost on a couple of spots, now down to 11th, behind Krasik, who's now involved in that fight with Oyahan, Senstrand, Guy, and himself. But this is a race that, despite the fact that we're 23.5 minutes in, Aaron, there has not been a dull moment at all. The battles up towards the front have very much spread out. I think the only sort of side-by-side fighting that we're going to have is the one going on right now between Berger and Locke. Gabriel Berger trying to get the move done into turn number 14, sideways, slideways through the braking zone, but Berger gets the move done on his teammate to slip his way up into the 4th position. But outside of this battle, it's mainly spread out up towards the front. You have to go back to that fight with Ohayan, Senstrand, Krasik, and Guy to just see an absolute hornet's nest of Radical SR10 race cars, as we may see Locke closing. Will he go for a move into turn number 1, or is he going to back out of it? The 555 car, he's teammates to the 25 right in front of him, but they have full permission to side-by-side fight as long as they want. They've been pretty clean about it thus far, and they continue to be clean about it now, as Cedric Oyahan goes off the track, heading down the hill, coming out of turn number 15, going to drop down to 11th. It's like the Tour de France right now, what we're seeing. One driver falls out of line, and then everything breaks loose as Guy goes off the track, coming out of the final corner, and drops back down to 11th.
Yeah, I think that's actually a fairly good way to put it. One driver just ever so slightly gets put offline, and everyone else behind has to check up and avoid them. And well, we saw that coming through the last few corners, as Oyahan and Guy still racing side by side nearly, as Oyahan got extremely close to the diffuser of Damien Guy. But yeah, coming through those final few corners, Oyahan had a slight little miscalculation coming through turn 15, and then all of a sudden Damien Guy was pushed ever so slightly wide, as Krasik, I think, has had an issue there. Coming through one of the S's, and I'm not sure how he's managed to do that, as they're flat out corners. And maybe at some point later on we can have a look at what on earth he just did. Now coming through South Bend once again, very easy through here to make a mistake, but still not seeing any from these guys, which is what you want to see. They are battling very, very hard for these final few places, as Guy got a bit sideways coming out of the Oak Tree, and now Oyahan has already overtaken him, but actually that gives the place pretty much freely back to Damien Guy. He'll get the slipstream, he's going to pull alongside probably but he miscalculated the fact that Krasik is actually going to be the one on the attack, as there's a bit of contact there with Oyahan, and it's actually sent him spinning round. They need to be careful to avoid him, as there's made contact now with Damien Guy. And finally, the inevitable has happened. It was just a slight tap from Krasik on Oyahan, and it was enough to put him off, and it put him into a spin into turn 14. And unfortunately, that's given himself and Damien Guy a bit of damage and a huge amount of time lost. And I think we can have a look at what happened to Charles earlier on, as it's going to happen in a few corners time, I believe, where I couldn't quite see what happened. I don't know if he just took a curb way too aggressively or what, but here it is, and he did. It was just, that is a very weird spin. I have never seen something like that. It was also almost like an auto correction. Either that or amazing car control from Krasik. But I mean, he's still in 9th. He's done a lot better than Guy and Oyahan have done. But that was a very strange spin. I've never seen anything like it.
Tell you what, Aaron, the Radical SR10 sometimes can defy the laws of physics. I once saw Radical SR10 pretty much nearly escape Earth's orbit. It went so high up into the air. We're going to take a look at another angle of this. Yeah, you can see that he hit the curb heading through the corner. That's what got him loose. The big thing with these race cars is that front splitter and its relevance to the ground is oh so important for these drivers. You don't want to hit the curbs too hard, otherwise you're just going to spin around like a top like we just saw a couple of moments ago for Krasik. Brief lapse of control, hits that curb, gets sideways, but I gotta say, a very good save. Again, very similar to what we saw with Guy not terribly long ago, turning his front tires into rectangles with a huge lockup, trying to snap the front end of that car right back around. But either way, he kept it on the racetrack, kept it out of the barriers and hang through that snake section. We didn't see someone get bit. So looking at this fight now, involving Berger and Locke, those two drivers have been going back and forth all throughout this race. Looks like it's still going to be the same case in the final lap of this race. Coming to the white flag next time by, I believe. It's been a very fantastic 28 minutes of racing action that we've had just had thus far. And bearing in mind, folks, this is just race 1 of 4 that we have to look forward to. The pros are going to be coming up in the not too distant future. But right now, looking at Euler, absolutely dominant in this race. 6.2 seconds in front of Dorian Lievre in P2. That is a massive cushion. So as long as he can keep it going in a straight line, Tom Euler is probably going to sneak away with the victory. And bearing in mind, folks, these drivers are contending for quite a lot of prizes on offer. The winner in the Pro and the AM categories, they're going to be picking up a free watch, and they're also going to be picking up a year subscription of racedata.ai. More on that later on in this broadcast. But Euler is going to be I'm not even sure what you just said a couple of moments ago, Aaron. Throwing me off a little bit. Euler's on the white flag. Oh, I don't believe it is a Rolex. I will get my notes up here real quick to go through the brand, but it is it's really not a Rolex. I'm sure these drivers wouldn't mind a Rolex. I wouldn't mind looking at it. That's neither here nor there. Just pawn it off to be able to afford the brand new Ferrari 499 GTP car that's going to be coming into the iRacing platform in a couple of weeks' time. I know you're going to be buying that car, Aaron. Yes. As I probably will be as well. I'll have 3 GTPs at that point in time. So I don't even know what I'll be doing with them. But it's actually Omolagato Radical Tifosi watch provided by Radical Motorsports and a 1-year subscription to racedata.ai. And Racedata is going to be becoming a paid service on January 1st of 2025. So pretty nice prizes on offer for these drivers in terms of trying to build up a good enough gap in the points for this race meeting for the World Finals. Euler getting off to as good of a start as he could. Look at that fight, though, involving Otterhold, Berger, and Locke. They may be 3 wide in the not-too-distant future. Would not rule it out in the slightest. Berger closing. Gonna try and go for the outside line of Otterhold. Side by side now, hang down the back straightaway. I wonder if Locke is going to try and go for that 3-wide maneuver he did earlier on, his side-to-side, door-to-door contact between those two racers of Berger and Otterhold. And looking at that, Locke coming in. Very lucky. The fact that wasn't a major collision. Adam Locke inches away from absolute catastrophe. But Tom Euler going to win this race in the AM category for race number 1 of the night. He's victorious over Dorian Lievre in the number 14 car in second. Then we have to wait a little bit to go back to Gabriel Berger going to round out your podium in third. Adam Locke, though, coming in like a bat out of hell. I think he is very lucky the fact that he and Christopher Autoholt still finish inside the top 5, because that was a major amount of contact tying off its roller coaster for the final time.
Well, I mean, major amount of contact just throughout this race for the top 5 as Adrian Fernandez manages to pick up a cheeky 6th place, and JR Gregory as well, up there in 7th, who really just kept his nose clean for most of the race and picked up a nice 7th place. I do put emphasis on most. You know, it wasn't perfect from JR, but he still managed to get a decent finish ahead of some well-established drivers in this series, like Stensrud, Guy, a couple others as well, as we just wait for everyone else to finish, as Damien Guy does end up winning against Melis. Into 10th place he goes, and now just waiting for the last few drivers like Oyahan, who could have had a pretty good finish as high as 8th, but just a few things today did not go his way. But Tom Euler, just, yeah, wow, there's not really too much to say. Just an absolute dominant performance by him, and obviously picking up maximum points for this first race, so he's going to be super pleased. But it's all about that next race. Can he keep that momentum, as it looks like it's probably going to be between himself and Olive. That's going to be my predictions for that AM Championship.
Yeah, that is, I think, a very stable prediction, Aaron. I think the only drivers that could really maybe get involved in that, I would say, is probably Berger, Alderholt, and Locke. But considering the drama they had throughout this race, not 100% confident on that. Of course, they were going to have a big challenge on their hands, a big change, because coming up in not this upcoming race, as we'll be able to bring you the action from the first pro race at this very racetrack, the next AM race is going to be at Interlagos. So that'll be a big wrench thrown into the works for some of these racers. But here at VIR for the first race of the day, Tom Euler going to take the checkered flag over Dorian Lievre, finishing 7.2 seconds back in P2. Gabriel Berger going to round out your podium in third. Then we have Christopher Alderholt in the number 3 car, finishing this race in 4th. Adam Locke in 5th. Adrian Fernandez going to finish this race a little bit farther back in 6th. Our Apex Racing TV colleague JR Gregory going to finish in 7th, fittingly in the number 7 car. Then we have Oleg Gunnard Senstrom going to be finishing this race in the 8th spot. Charles Krasik behind in 9th. Damien Guy in 10th. Stefan Mellis going to be finishing this race in 11th. Cedric Oyahan, who we saw involved in that fight inside the top 10 towards the end of this race, got the short end of the stick. He ends up finishing down in 12th. Guy Robertson finishes this race in 13th. Luis Pires finishes in 14th, and not taking the start is Aaron Smith.
Oh, that was mean. I've heard that joke 1 million times.
I think the first ever broadcast we did, Aaron, and Samuli may be able to back me up on this because he was a producer for that all the way back in March of 2023. I remember we had a conversation about name pronunciations, considering my last name is the German keyboard smash that it is. And I remember you talking about the fact that people used to call you Aaron, but with name discussions out of the way, we won't have to bring that up throughout the rest of this broadcast. And speaking of the rest of this broadcast, we got a whole lot of action. And coming up in just a couple of moments' time, we're going to have the action from race number 1 for the pro drivers. They're going to be hitting the racetrack here at VIR in just a couple of moments' time, and we'll be able to bring you that action after these messages.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VR.
Alrighty everybody, welcome back to Apex Racing TV's coverage of the 2024 Radical World Finals. This is the first race for the pros, currently in the midst of this qualifying session, about halfway through. The pro drivers, some of the best Radical SR10 racers on iRacing in the world, running for bragging rights and some nice prizes as well. Got a lot of heavy hitters out there on the racetrack in this qualifying session. The likes of James Barry, Ryan Odo, Franco Sanchez, Lasse Sorensen, Christoph Leb, Andres Friedrich, Mats Gestrombakken, Eric Harmon, Sally Reitinen, and Kettle Larson. And those are just the drivers who currently complete your top 10 in this qualifying session. We've got a lot of fantastic drivers ready to hit the racetrack for another one of these 30-minute long races. But in the midst of this qualifying session right now, Aaron, for these pro drivers, Barry currently on the provisional pole at a 1 minute 41.189, but the gaps up towards the front are microscopic, with Ryan Odo, who came up oh so close to winning the America's Pro Championship. He is currently slotted in P2 at the moment. Make that P3 as the German Christoph Lipp jumping up to the provisional pole in front of James Barry. Lipp, the European racer who is involved in that European and Pro Championship fight. He's bringing the thunder here at VIR.
Well, he was definitely probably the out-and-out quickest driver last season, but just a few races just didn't go his way. And well, I think he went on like a 6-race win streak at the start of the season. But then just towards the middle, it just tailed off for him. He lost a few crucial points, and that just allowed Friedrich and Barry eventually to overtake him. And of course, Lipp ended up finishing, I think, 3rd in the championship. But, you know, tonight he's just got 2 races to make the best of, and currently 0.2 of a second ahead of James Barry. That is a very, very good margin in these latter stages of the qualifying session. Only one more lap for pretty much every single driver, as Sorensen now goes into 2nd place. Again, he's only got 1 lap to go, as on this lap at the moment, Christoph Lipp is still setting the timing screens alight. He was a 10th quicker through Sector 3 than anyone else, so this next lap from Lipp could be the one that I don't think anyone is getting near, as just looking at the sector times, no one is really within a 10th or 2 of Lipp at the moment, and it's looking very, very good for him on this next lap. He's coming towards the line, is the German. It's probably going to be one of the quickest lap times we're going to see today, and it is a marginal improvement for Christoph Lipp, just by about half a tenth. And that's just made his gap even more comfortable, as Odo now goes into 2nd place, a 10th behind Christoph Lipp. And he's the closest man to him at the moment, as everyone else finishing up their qualifying sessions. Doesn't look like anyone else is going to be able to challenge Christoph for that pole position. Everyone is pretty much done. Sorensen has had a bit of a poor start to this lap, so I don't think this is going to be the one for the Norwegian. As Sanchez coming across the line, he can't challenge any further up the grid than 5th. And everyone now, I'm pretty sure, is in their grid slots. I don't think anyone is going to improve on this last lap.
Yeah, so it looks like that is going to be the qualifying order. Less than 30 seconds left on the clock. And of course, since it is a solo qualifying session, the iRacers immediately going to get yoinked back to pit lane. So that will probably do it for this qualifying session. Waiting for a few more drivers to cross that start-finish line to complete their qualifying session. This is Myron Ianni, the Italian behind the wheel of the number 8 car, a staple in the Friday official broadcast here on Apex Racing TV. Currently qualifying 8th. Is it an improvement from the Italian? It is not, so he is going to remain in the 8th place position as a checkered flag is at in this qualifying session. And the first blood going to Christoph Lipp, the German, looking to join his fellow German Tom Euler, who won in the AM race just a couple of moments ago. He's going to start this race from the pole. The young American Ryan Odo going to join him on the front row. Lasse Sorensen going to be starting this race in 3rd. James Barry, the official champion, the official Radical SR10 Esports Cup champion last season and the championship leader now, he is in 4th. Also the reigning 2024 European Championship, so he is a fantastic driver in this car. He's going to be starting in 4th, Franco Sanchez in 5th, Mats Gesternbachen in 6th, Andres Friedrich in 7th, Myron Ianni going to be starting in 8th, Dennis Kyriakopoulos in 9th, Alexander Scaret, the Norwegian, in the IGL Coatings car, going to be starting this race in 10th. Then we have George Gonzaga in 11th, Sally Reitinen, who seems to be a fan favorite according to the YouTube chat. He's going to be starting this race in 12th. And looking through the rest of the starters that we have in this grid, we have Kettle Larson, another Norwegian, in 13th, Eric Harmon 14th, Rylan Richard, a U.S. Air Force veteran, starting this race in the 15th position. Mike Buson going to be starting this race in 16th. Gordon Haug at 17th. Jean Benlid going to be starting this race in P18. The Canadian going to be rounding out your 18-car grid that we have for this race. But a lot of hard chargers up towards the front. A lot of drivers are going to be heavy hitters. As I said, in a very jumbled up fashion, Barry, he is currently leading the official Radical Esports Cup Championship. He is the reigning Radical Esports Cup champion on iRacing. He is also the 2024 European champion, so he is stunningly quick in these Radical SR10 race cars. So look at him starting from the 4th position. He's going to be a hard charger to be sure. Christoph Lipp going to be starting this race from the pole, though, showing up the pace in the qualifying session. He's joined on the front row by Odo, who's going to be another quick driver that we have to keep our eyes on. The lights are going to go out, and the drivers are on their way. The daunting run into turn number 1. Another good start from a pole sitter. This time it's Christoph Lipp, the German, going to be leading them heading down into turn number 1. Look at that, though. Some drivers getting really racing in contact lead already. That's Lasse Sorensen running into the back of Ryan Odo in the number 15 car. That's going to drop the young American down to last. Odo maybe being a little bit careful heading into turn number 1. Sorensen not responding and running into the back of Odo. Odo, he's such a quick driver in these SR10s. In terms of luck, though, he has been struck by so many falling anvils all throughout this season, but this time it's not a falling anvil that strikes him. It's a Norwegian who sends him spinning off the track into turn number 1. That's a heartbreaker for the young American. He has a lot of work to do between now and the end of this race, but thankfully for him, he's got about 29 minutes to get the job done.
Well, you say that he got ran into. I'm not quite sure. It looked like he was being very, very aggressive on the brakes into turn 1. And Sorensen was looking up the inside. Odo said, no, sod off. And he ran into the back of him. So we might have to get a replay to confirm my suspicions, as Odo has already made up 1 place already, up into 17th. And he's going to be a hard charger throughout this race, as Sorensen now going side by side and challenging for the lead of the race. It's extremely close between these two. Lipp trying to be aggressive, but Sorensen just shutting the door on the German, and that's kind of what these guys need to do. They can't let Lipp just run away with it. They need to take the fight to him, and Sorensen now the leader of your race after that lap 1 contact with Odo. And now, what's it going to be like for Christoph Lipp, as he's going to be a bit under pressure, as James Barry putting the pressure on Sanchez as well as we head into turn 1. Is the Brit going to go up the inside into 3rd place? He is, as Sanchez, I don't think, was fighting that one too hard, but there's contact between Sanchez and Andreas Friedrich. One of your championship contenders in the European Series has fallen all the way back down to 18th place and last. I think it was a bit optimistic from Friedrich, but I think we need to see a replay so we can get a better angle of what happened between himself and Sanchez, as Odo's made more contact with Gordon Haug, and I think that's Buson as well, heading into turn 4.
That is a major amount of drama, some big side damage on Odo's race car. Take a look at a replay to see what happened following Mike Busan in the number 12 car. Let's see what in the world happened here. No, I think it was a move from Odo. A move from Odo that he was trying to get done. I believe it was Eric Harmon. He goes off the circuit, spins hang through turn number 3, and then Busan having to take evasive action. But Odo with a... Oh, that is such a shame for him. I was going to say, and I'm not just biased because I covered him in the Americas series, Odo, the young American, he is such a quick driver in these SR10s. He's won some official races against these drivers in the past, nearly won the Americas championship in the process, but he's very quick, but these little mistakes can seem to bite him. Taking a look, that was the spin for Friedrich. You could see him making contact with the side of Franco Sanchez's race car, so the Peruvian and the German coming up blows through turn number 1, and here's that replay of Odo and Harmon. Oh, and you can see the car coming in, making contact with Ryan Odo. You can see the front flying. That, I believe, was Gordon Hauges that now had to go back to pit lane to repair the damage on that race car. But Odo, he's such a quick driver in this race car, but that, I don't know about you, Aaron, that just looked like an overly opportunistic move of a driver who's very frustrated after this happened to him hang down into turn number 1 at the very beginning of the race.
Yeah, I mean, I guess now that I've gotten a second look at it, I think Sorensen was being a bit optimistic going for that one, but I do still stand by the fact that Odo was being aggressive on those brakes. And, well, speaking of Odo, that damage has really hampered his race. He is not as quick as he once was, and not surprised, that was a huge whack into the side of his car, as our first retiree or tow back is Gordon Haug. He's had to tow back. I'm not surprised he was missing the entire front end of his car, as Christoph Lipp now under pressure from James Barry, and they've really pulled away from the guys behind. I think Sanchez, after that contact with Friedrich, maybe just got a bit sideways and had to check up, maybe a bit of damage as well, and that's just allowed these top 3 to pull away. And it's just going to be between these guys now for the lead of the race, at least for the next few laps. And Lipp not really setting the times alight like I would have thought he was, as Sanchez just about defending from Greschenbachen, and Scaretti's teammate as well, trying to eye up a move as well into 4th. But it all just starts to settle down a little bit as we head back onto the main straight. Now everyone's tucking nicely into the slipstream, as Gordon Howe coming back onto the racetrack, as the teammates Scaret and Greschenbachen may be tempted to go side by side, but Scaret backed out of that one as further back. Kiriakopoulos going for a move on Gonzaga, and I believe he got that one finished and done into turn 1, and he's up into 8th place.
Yeah, some drivers getting some moves done early on, making hay while the sun is shining, so to speak. And looking through the field, gotta say the hard charger at this point is John Benlid, already up 5 spots in the number 6 car. He's running down in 13th as it stands at the moment, but the Canadian was pretty quick in the Americas Championship this past season, so we'll have to see if he can really impress. He's gonna have to catch up and race with another America's champion competitor, that being Ryland Richard in the 12th position at the moment. So that may be a fight that we have to keep our eyes on, involving a hard charger and another driver in this series who's shown a lot of pace. But looking right now, Lasse Sorensen still leading over Christoph Lipp, who's in front of James Barry. These 3 breaking away, as the gap between Barry and Sanchez is about 2.5 seconds as they go onto the back straightaway for the 4th time in this race. Looks like we're not going to see the 3-wide action that we saw in the AM race earlier on. These drivers going to play the patient game. They realize, despite the fact we're 6.5 minutes into this race already, they still got a whole lot of stuff to go in this 30-minute long race. So Lasse Sorensen going to be leading it. Lipp and Barry not really challenging him. Currently Barry setting the fastest lap of the race at 1:41.0. As we look at Sanchez running in the 4th position at the moment. He's pretty quick in this series. However, the front 3, in terms of pace, they're just an entirely different ballpark. In terms of the drivers outside the top 3, my apologies. Wow, 3 seeming to be a word that I cannot spit out for the life of me. Sanchez very, very quick though, so I think in terms of speed, he may be a driver that we would keep our eyes on if the 3 in front of him come to blows, as we see a fight involving Kiriakopoulos and Diani heading down into turn number 1. Kiriakopoulos going to get that move done to slip his way up into 7th. As we see, I believe that maybe Sally Wrighton and pulling over maybe letting past Lasse Sorensen in the not-too-distant future. There is the very striking livery of Reitinen in the number 7 car. And like that fight has very much cooled off. But getting back to the point that I was going to mention, where my tongue got wrapped around itself about 14 times, in terms of pace, Aaron, Sanchez is very quick running in the 4th spot, but those front 3, they're just an entirely different dimension.
Yeah, they really are. And, well, they were setting amazing pace during the European Championship all throughout the season. And, well, it's no different today. And, well, hopefully we get to see some side-by-side action between these guys at some point soon. And, well, thank you, Christoph Lipp. You've answered my prayers, and we're going side-by-side heading into the roller coaster. And he's just about managed to get himself back into the lead, but Sorensen is going to be hounding to get that place back. And this is probably what it's going to be, is Sorensen choosing an interesting line there through the final few corners, losing himself a bit of time and potentially putting himself under pressure from James Barry, as he now looks on a potential move for that 2nd place. But I just don't think he's quite close enough to go for that move. But Sorensen is going to have to challenge for this lead of the races. Well, I've seen this one before. If Christoph Lipp gets into the lead of the race, he can just run away with it if you are not careful. And I expect them to be trading places for about the next 10-15 minutes, as long as they can keep it on the road. And then once we get towards those final few laps, then they're going to start being more aggressive. They're going to start pushing the car a little bit more on the limit, and that's when we'll see the true battling come out, as long as they can keep it clean within that time.
Yeah, that's a big thing with these racers to finish first. First, you have to finish. I've read that in a fortune cookie before, and it really rings true in these Radical SR10 races. Don't want to get lost in battles too much, get caught up in the red mist, because eventually that red mist is going to completely blind you, and you're going to end up slamming your way into either a competitor or one of the barriers around this racetrack. 20 corners in all, 20 corners and a long straightaway, which has given us a fantastic race thus far, and we're only about 9 minutes into it, so this race has been phenomenal, and the action is still going to continue. Jestrombakken nearly going into the grass and trying to get a move done on Sanchez to slip his way up until 4th. They are nearly side by side, heading through the braking zone into turn number 14. They stay single file. Sanchez still running in 4th. Jestrombakken right behind him. P5, Scaret and Kyriakopoulos in tow as well. Have to go a little bit farther back to see another pack forming with Myron Ianni, George Gonzaga, Sally Reitinen, and Kettle Larson there, my apologies, in the 11th position. But that pack is looking incredibly enticing, as this one is right now. Sanchez in the lead of it for the time being, but Jestrombakken got the inside line, hang down into turn number 1. Will he get the move done? Sanchez going to be oh so close to making contact. He may lose out on another spot. Jestrombakken gets a move done as Alexander Skoret looking to try and go around the outside as they head their way into turn number 3. Skoret, the Norwegian in the number 17 car, going to hold position for now. However, if these drivers start to battle, we may see that gap between Kyriakopoulos, the last car of this pack, and Ianni, the front car of the pack behind. We may see that gap disappear in the span of just a couple of laps time. It's now down to only a second. It's getting very close to them picking up the draft.
Yes, it is, and, well, it would be great to see these guys being closer to the front of the field, as realistically, I think they do have the pace to keep tabs with them, but I think those early few laps where, you know, Sanchez made that contact and he had to check up with Friedrich, that definitely hampered him. And, well, 2.5 seconds back from James Barry, that is a huge amount of time. As here was what I was predicting. Sorensen is going to trade places back with Lipp, and I don't think Lipp was fighting that one too hard, as he knows there's a long way to go in this race, till 19 minutes, my apologies, to go in this one, as Barry, interestingly, he's not had a very good lap. He's just dropped off slightly from the front 2, as Scaret's really trying to eye up a move on Sanchez so he can put himself into 5th place and give him and his teammate Jestrombakken a real nice buffer in this race as we head back into turn 1 once again for the 8th time in this race. Scaret's actually trying to go for a move up the inside on Sanchez, and Sanchez just about holding on to the outside, now turning into the inside as we head into turn 3, but just has to back out of it, and Scaret's getting that place And I think Sanchez looked a bit easy there. I don't think he was fighting that one too hard. Now Kirkopoulos trying to go for a move, but there's no room there at all. And good thing he backed out of it, as not enough room there for two cars going side by side.
Yeah, that's the thing with this racetrack, Aaron. Despite the fact it was entirely redone at the end of the 90s, merging into the 2000s, it still has that old school feel to it. There's not a lot of sections around this racetrack where you can go side by side realistically, especially in these race cars, which, if we're being honest, tend a bit more towards understeer than some of the other cars that you see on the iRacing platform. So it's real tough trying to go side by side through sections like the S's, for instance, where you have those turns, the tires are basically being worn down to that canvas. One thing that I mentioned not terribly long ago, that we are seeing that convergence of the pack of Barry, Scaret, Sanchez, and Kyriakopoulos. They've now been caught up by the pack of Ayani, Gonzaga, Reinen, and Larson behind. So this is now a hornet's nest of 8 Radical SR10 race cars, covered by only a couple of seconds up towards the front end of the field. Really only 3 seconds separating them heading through Hogpen, the final few corners around this racetrack, before getting spat back out onto that start-finish straightaway. Even through here, it can be a little bit risky to go 3 wide, because really there's only enough real estate. There's only so much real estate for these drivers to work out with side by side, as we may see with Reinen dancing around the racetrack, dancing a jig heading down into the braking zone at turn number 1. It looked like he was going to try and attempt a move on George Gonzaga, but not close enough. He may fall back into the clutches of Kettle Larson right behind. So to the Scandinavian drivers running just barely inside and just barely outside of the top 10 as it stands at the moment. Gotta say, Ryan Odo has made a run down pit lane, so things have gone from bad to worse for the American. That damage that he picked up as a result of that collision with himself, and I still believe it was Eric Harmon, heading down into turn number 3, clearly being insurmountable as he's had to go back to the pits, running 46 seconds back of our race leader Sorensen. And he was a driver who, if he didn't get involved in that incident with himself and Sorensen earlier on in the race, he would have had a really good shot to do well, but things not going to materialize as we see side-by-side fighting with Friedrich and Benelid heading down through the S's towards the middle sector of this lap. Friedrich getting the move done to slip his way up into the 14th position. Getting back to the point that I was going to mention of Odo, Aaron, I know that you were on the European side of things, so you didn't get to see too much of the Americas action. So believe me when I say that Ryan Odo is an incredibly quick driver, and considering that he's, I think, a teenager, I'm not entirely sure. I never really asked his age whenever we were on the broadcast, because that may sound a little bit suspect, but Odo, he's a young driver. He's a fast driver as well. Sadly, that incident, though, with Sorensen taking him out of contention as he finds himself 17th halfway through this race. But Ryan Odo, if he was up towards the front, he was going to be a force to be reckoned with. But sadly, things just not going to work out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with the way that the point system works as well, in these 2 races that these guys will have to compete in, unfortunately, it pretty much means that he's going to be out of contention for the prizes that are going to be won for, as the point system really does reward consistent finishing, as it's pretty much wherever you finish, it's going to be the exact opposite amount of points. So if you finish first, you'll get 20 points, and if you finish 20th, you'll get 1 point. So, you know, Odo's going to get, what's that, 3 points if he finishes where he is, and the guys up at the top, as long as they just finish strongly when we head to Interlagos, they're going to have a really, really good chance at winning those oh-so-important prizes. And well, that's the thing, this mindset that you've got to have for these types of races, where it's a very, very short championship, and it really does reward consistency. It's not like points in, I don't know, say a normal championship where it's like first will get 25 points, second will get 18. It literally is, you have to finish right up at the top in every single race if you want to contend. Or you've just got to hope that the other drivers around you have some horrible luck. It's no if or buts, really. You've just got to finish at the top in both of these races if you want even a sniff at that potential big watch that you maybe could be wearing in your next sim racing session.
Yeah, may possibly, perhaps. Always got to check the time if you are a very sim racer. But at this point in time, these drivers feeling the burn as the checkered flag of this race is slowly but surely approaching. 17 minutes in of this 30-minute long race, and not a whole lot of time left for these drivers to begin to battle. Gotta say, Aaron, going back to a point that you mentioned not terribly long ago on this broadcast, the fact that Barry was slowly losing touch with Sorensen and Lip, he's now brought up that gap a lot, so it's now only 6/10 of a second that he's off the leader of Sorensen, and only a couple of tenths between himself and Lip for P2. So James Barry is a very fast racer in this series, but the thing is, you could be a blisteringly quick driver, but if you have the consistency of expired mayonnaise, you're not going to find yourself doing well in these races. The thing that Barry has always been a master of when it comes to either the official races, which are a little bit shorter than these, or in those European Championship races where they're either 45 minutes long or just 15, he was able to pace himself really, really well. It's like a marathon runner, you know? You don't want to be running at full speed all the time. You want to treat it like a marathon. You don't want to treat it like a sprint, because you don't want to burn up your tires. You don't want to burn yourself up in this race, and that's going to be a real important thing that may decide how this goes for Barry. Currently finding himself in the 3rd position. He hasn't burnt out. It's not the case of Icarus with wax wings flying too close to the sun, having them melt and having him crash into the ocean. Barry at this point in time is pacing himself really, really well. Finding himself in 3rd, still within striking distance of Sorensen and Lip, and hey, if those two drivers in front of him go side by side and end up going off the racetrack in a cloud of dust and steam, he wouldn't mind that at all. Speaking of side by side with Sorensen and Lip, heading down into turn number 1, looks like Sorensen going to hold on to the lead as it stands at the moment. Christoph Lip, another quick driver in this series, Sorensen as well, but I think in terms of the patient game of those 3 racers, I've commentated races with all 3 of them in the past, and I gotta say, Barry probably the one who can play that Iceman role the best.
This is just something that I was thinking about, just as one does, listening to these radical cars. It's only just occurred to me how much I hate the engine note this car makes. Don't know if anyone else feels the same, but it's literally vacuum cleaner, completely and utterly, as some things happen to Larson and Raitanen, as they're both out of the race, and Friedrich potentially as well. Is that a big pile-up potentially? As Friedrich has seemingly gone into the barrier. Yeah, that's big damage, or he's going to have to tow that back. His front right tyre is currently not connected to the motor vehicle, I don't think. So he is going to have to, well, basically retire from this one. As here is Raitanen, a very popular driver in the chat, and that curb, just, that's a huge hit. And Larson with huge damage, and same for Raitanen. Unsurprisingly, they both had to tow back. And Friedrich did the exact same thing, but just all by himself. And albeit just not a complete airplane crash like it was for Raitanen.
That was possibly the most spectacular crash I've ever seen in my time covering Radical SR10 races on iRacing. That was hellacious between the 2 of them. That goes back to a point we mentioned earlier on this broadcast, Aaron, about the fact that this track, despite the fact it was refurbished and widened compared to how it was back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, still a very narrow racetrack, and through a section like that, the runoff area runs pretty close as well, so you see stuff like that happen from time to time. I'm curious, Amelia, if we can maybe get another angle of that, because that was a horrible crash heading through the snake section. That was a very visceral reaction that I had as we saw that collision as well. I'm not sure if that got picked up on the microphone or what. That was a scary looking crash between the 2 of them. I gotta feel bad for Kettle Larson. Absolutely nowhere to go. One driver who I'm not feeling bad for, though, is Myron Ianni. He was right behind Ryan when he went off the circuit. You can see the replay. Takes to the... Oh, you can see, that was a big hit for the both of them. I am shocked that Ryan didn't end up on his lid. He certainly got pretty damn close to it, though, as we're taking a look at Friedrich and his perspective, the off-track incursion that he had right after that through the same section of the racetrack. I think, Aaron, that collision kind of started off because of the Radical SR10's sensitivity to curbs and occasional defiance, so to speak, when it comes to any directional control from the steering wheel. So I think that may have been the reason why that happened, but either way, a big crash involving 2 pretty fast drivers in this series. They were running right towards the top 10, but sadly, they're going to have to settle for last place finishes.
Yeah, it's a real shame and kind of interesting just to see how much of a struggle this VIR race circuit has been for some of these guys. And, some of our top drivers, Odo, Friedrich, Reitenen, Horg, and Larson, all of them being very, very competitive throughout this entire season, making very, very similar mistakes and, just falling behind and, well, pretty much giving themselves free reign in Interlagos to do whatever they want because, like I mentioned earlier on, the point system, just if you have one bad race, it's pretty much over unless something very, very dramatic happens in that second race. But these top three, I can imagine maybe this race they will take it relatively easy. Not completely, of course. They want to win the race. That's why we're here. That's why we're racing drivers. But I think Interlagos is going to be the one where these cars and drivers are going to be pushing to the absolute limit, as that's going to be their last opportunity to gain each other those last few points. And Sorensen, Lip, Barry definitely seem to be the top three that you'd put your money on right now. I think potentially we can see in Interlagos some other drivers who've had bad races today could mix up the point standings, like Odo, Friedrich and co. It's not going to be game set match for these top three in this race. It's definitely going to be a slog when we head to Interlagos, but hopefully at the end of that race it should be all worth it and we'll get some fantastic action to round off this amazing season.
Yeah, it has been a brilliant 2024 in terms of Radical SR10 racing in the world of iRacing, as we see a side-by-side fight involving Jestrembakken, Scarrett, and Sanchez. Sanchez continuing to shuffle back, now running in the 6th spots behind the two IGL Coatings teammates, running in the 5th and 4th position respectively. But it has been a fantastic 2024 for the Radical SR10 community in the world of iRacing. Of course, the Americas and European Championship. Incredibly exciting from start to finish with some really good championship storylines to boot as well. This World Finals race, despite the fact that we are, I'd say, we're one full race in and about, trying to do the math in my head, 7/8 of the way through the second one. We still got two more races, two full races to be run after this. So this World Finals meeting has been pretty exciting thus far. And even in terms of the official series on iRacing, it's been a brilliant year for the Radical Esports Cup. The participation has been through the roof. I mean, this past Friday for the official broadcast on Apex Racing TV, we had, what was it, about 60 entries, which compared to how it was a couple of seasons ago, Aaron, it has been a complete reversal for the Radical SR10 in the world of iRacing. The people at Radical SimRacing and Radical Motorsports as well have a very big role in terms of how the Radical SimRacing side of things goes. They have worked incredibly well to try and breathe some new life into this series, and they have done that and tenfold. There's a very great community of Radical SR10 racers on the iRacing platform, and we're seeing a lot of those heavy hitters run in this race. Still looking at this fight with Sanchez, Scarrett, and Jestrembakken. Will we have a side-by-side fight, though, heading into turn number 1? Let's see Scarrett taking that defensive inside line.
No.
Sanchez resorting to a move around the outside. That may have been off-track a moment. Yes, it has been off-track moment for Lasse Sorensen. He's spun out the lead of this race, so the driver of the number 80 car, another IGL Coatings racer, joining his kind, but he's not battling for the win. He's not battling for the podium anymore. He's going to barely be inside the top 5. This is a disaster for Lasse Sorensen. Let's take a look at a replay to see what happened here as they go side by side right behind him between Christoph Lipp and Barry. He just loses control of the race car, goes wide into turn number 1, and takes to the grass runoff area. Lasse Sorensen, who had a really good shot to win this race, he's now got to be lucky if he finishes inside the top 5. A heartbreaker for Sorensen.
Well, that's going to be a real kick in the nads, isn't it, for Sorensen, as, like you said, a very, very good chance to win this race, as Lipp and Barry were battling going into those first few corners. Oh, dear. Lasse Sorensen, just one tiny mistake, and that's what I was saying earlier on about this track. Is so punishing, whereas a track like Interlagos, if you make that mistake, it's easy to get back on, as Sanchez going for an aggressive move up into 4th and overtaking Scarrett. That was a very brave move there from the Peruvian driver. And well, Sorensen, looking at this battling, he's got to make his way through once again, all of these cars, if he wants any chance of getting back into that championship fight. But it's a bit of a tall order to overtake 3 cars, 2 of which are your teammates, going into these last few laps as Sanchez still battling it out with Skrett. As we head into turn 1, Skrett just about eking ahead now, and Sanchez is forced to just sit back as we head into turn 3. And Sorensen potentially looked for a move there, but it's just not close enough for the Norwegian driver. And, well, potentially Sorensen driving a bit aggressive, a bit angry, frustrated, and that's dangerous as a driver as well. Just basically the red mist swelling around that Radical car, and he should basically just put danger on the front and rear of his car to alert other drivers. I'm angry. I've had a terrible race. He's getting oh so close to the cars ahead. And I would not be surprised if we saw a very, very risky move heading into the roller coaster for any one of these 4 cars. Will they make it out of the corner is another question, and we're about to find out. I think Sorensen just got a pretty poor exit coming out of Oak Tree, but Sanchez did not, as he's right on the back and now side by side and now ahead of Alexander Skrett heading into turn 14. They're going to have one more lap after this to settle this battle once and for all. Sanchez putting himself into 4th once again, but can he hold on to it as we head onto the white flag?
Yes, indeed. One more lap of racing action for the first pro race of the day. Who's going to win it? Who's going to finish on the final podium spot? Who's going to round out your top 5? A whole lot left to be determined, and we only have about 3.5 miles left to decide it. Look at Skrett, mega deep on the brakes into turn number 1, currently running in 5th. Is he going to try and fight with Gestrembakken and Sanchez for that final podium spot? That would certainly help him out a whole lot in terms of that championship fight. Looking at these drivers, though, continue to fight. I'm curious who's going to be victorious in this race, though. Lip and Barry covered by about a half a second. Didn't see either of them go for a move, but they're going to be going through one of the trickiest sections through this racetrack, and also one of the most important ones as well. Through the S's for the final time for Lip and Barry. They're going to be quickly approaching Oak Tree, and when they do, it is going to be a drag race, a battle of wits. It's a game of chess at times in these Radical SR10 races. Who's going to be the one that outsmarts the other? Is it going to be Lip, or is it going to be James Barry going on to the back straightaway for the final time? Lip weaving around the racetrack like a madman. He wants to break that drift. He wants nothing to do with the side-by-side finish with himself and Barry, but I gotta say, that gap isn't going down as much as I thought it would be. I thought they were going to be closer. Barry, I'm not sure if he had a very good run heading through the S's, through South Bend and into Oak Tree for the final time, because those 2 cars are covered by about a half a second. That or he's maybe trying to save up a run, as we see a big wreck farther in the back with Sanchez, Kyriakopoulos getting through out of that incident. Skrett involved in that as well. That's going to allow Lasse Sorensen into that final podium spot. But who's going to be 1 and 2? Lip coming across the start-finish line now to win the first race of the day. Barry going to finish only a 10th and a half second behind, a 10th and a half of a second behind at P2. Sorensen going to round out your podium 3rd. As a result of that drama, heading down into the roller coaster for the final time. Gestrembakken, he's had to tow some major damage on that race car. He and Sanchez were going side by side. Skrett involved in that. There you can see the battered and broken and bruised machine of Alexander Skrett. The IGL Coatings number 17 car picking up a lot of damage as a result of this incident with his teammate. You can see they're bump drafting and beating doors heading down that start-finish line. Oh, that is stupid. That is pure stupidity. What in the world were you doing there, Franco? Did your hand get yanked out of the wheel? Did you have a temper tantrum? What in the world was going on there? That wasn't necessary.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to see an onboard shot from one of those cars to really gather an idea of what on earth happened. Because, I mean, was this intentional? Or, like you said, was it just him battling with his own steering wheel? As here we go then, onto this straight. He gets a bit of a nudge, and then gets very aggressive, and they just... Oh, dear. That was just very, very silly from, I think, all 3 of them on that last lap. They were all getting very close, unnecessarily close to one another, and eventually all of them paid the price for it. and Sorensen just went on through laughing, and he made himself up into third. I said it would be difficult and almost impossible for him to get back past those three, and he did it with relative ease. Just saw all three of them kill each other into roller coaster, and still managed to get a cheeky third place out of it. So fair play to Lasse Sorensen.
And that may end up saving his chances at taking the World Finals win here for 2024. That was just purely unnecessary, but allows him to grab the final podium spot. Here are the results from this first pro race of the day. Christoph Lipp, the German, going to make it a German sweep of the races here at VIR. He wins it in the pros. James Berry going to finish right behind in second. Lasse Sorensen going to take a podium result. Looked like he was going to win, then he dropped down to sixth, and then with that drama hang down into roller coaster for the final time, he ends up taking the final podium position. Dennis Kyriakopoulos is going to be very happy with the fourth place run. Myron Ayani in fifth, George Gonzaga in sixth, Franco Sanchez going to finish in seventh. Guys, I feel like I need to issue an apology to Franco Sanchez. That was mainly just an incident of him and Jestrom Bakken losing their cool, but either way, he ends up in seventh. Rylan Richard going to finish behind in eighth. Alexander Scarrett in ninth. Eric Harmon going to round at your top 10. Then we have John Benlid, Mike Busan, Ryan Odo, Andres Friedrich, Mats Jestrom Bakken, Sauli Reitinen, Gordon Haug finishing this race in 17th. Kettle Larson going to finish all the way down in P18. Rounding out your grid and rounding out your finishers from the first of two pro races here this evening, and that does it for the action at VIR, because coming up in just a couple of moments time, we got the action at Interlagos, which is going to be a brilliant show from start to finish. VIR set a really good example, but Interlagos, it hosted a European and Americas race earlier on this season. It's going to play host to the final two races of today's race meeting, and I'll be right back with some more action to crown an AM champion in just a couple of moments time.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Alrighty, everybody, we are back for the second half of the racing action here for the 2024 Radical World Finals. We had two fantastic races at VIR in the AM and the Pro Division, and here to wrap things up, coming up right now, is the amateur race. If you're just tuning into this broadcast, my name is Ron Mullins. Aaron Smith is joining me in the commentary booth, and all the producing is being done by Samuli Kumo in the virtual production hauler here at Interlagos for these final two races, and the last of the amateurs coming up right about now. Now, Aaron, off the back of a really impressive performance from Tom Euler in that first race, he stands at the moment with 21 points on the board, 20 points awarded to the winner of these races. Then you have to go down by 1 point increments all the way down to 20th. You also get a point for grabbing the pole position in this race. Euler currently finds himself on the provisional pole as it stands at the moment at 1 minute 29.769. Make that at 1 minute 29.255. So Euler really looking to continue that form that he showed at VIR earlier on today, setting the pace at the moment. I don't know about you, Aaron, but I think he is very much the favorite heading into this race.
Well, yes, I mean, judging by the pace he had in that last race and the current pace he has in this one, yeah, it's going to be difficult for anyone to challenge Tom, I think, unless he makes a mistake on his own or some miraculous thing happens in this race. Maybe a lapped car or something, or iRacing just decides no for Tom Euler, crashes his game, or something else happens, maybe an invisible wall, I don't know, but it's going to be extremely difficult, I think, for anyone to match Tom Euler's pace. And like I said at VIR, it's very weird because he showed this kind of pace at the start of this season, all the way back in February. And then towards the middle part of the season, he just fell off, and we never really saw this kind of pace again from Tom. It was actually at Interlagos in the European Series, where it was kind of his last decent race. I think he had a bit of a bad feature race, but we just never saw the same Tom after that again. And now we are starting to see his true pace shine again. And, some people are debating whether he should potentially be in the pros as Berger. That's not the ideal way to take Zhengkao at all, as that's going to be the end of his qualifying session, as, pretty much nearly the entire grid has already finished their qualifying laps. A lot shorter here at Interlagos than it is at VIR, only about 1 minute 30 or just under. Even for the AMs, for the pros, we might even be into the 28s at some point, as JR Gregory seemingly going very slow over the start-finish line. Is he? Nope, he's towed back to the pits. I thought he was going to practice a start there for a second. But yeah, pretty... I was going to say close, but apart from Euler, it is actually fairly close. From second all the way down to 14th, it's only a second. So take Euler out of the equation, and yeah, we've got a good race on our hands.
Yeah, I think Euler, he's just an entirely different dimension compared to a lot of these racers. And you bring up a point, there was a lot of discussion throughout that AM race earlier on and even after it as well. The fact that Euler sits at about 4.7 KI rating compared to some of the other drivers in this field. looking through, the next closest to him is actually Adam Locke, right behind the European AM champion here for 2024. He's only at 3.1k iRating. I say only 3.1k iRating. That is still ludicrously high compared to what I'm at. That's about double what I am on my sports car license, albeit I rarely, if ever, run in officials, but still, Euler, just an entirely different dimension. He's off the back of a win this past Friday in the Radical Official Series running. Of course, that series is broadcasting the top split races for the Radical Esports Cup. So Euler, a very fast racer, a very highly rated iRacer as well. So at 4.7, and considering the pace that he showed both during that first race, oh boy, both during that first race and the second race, it's a good thing to always take a breath before your lungs nearly collapse on the air. But Euler, considering the pace he showed at VIR, and considering the pace he shows right now here at Interlagos, I feel like there's just no stopping him. I feel like the German is just on his way to a World Finals win. Knowing my luck, though, I probably just jinxed it.
Yeah, you probably did. That's what happens here on Apex. You talk good about a driver, and they just, yeah, something. It's not even a crash. Something just really awful happens, like their wheel disconnects or something along those lines. But yeah, you've defo jinxed him.
Yeah, I may have possibly jinxed him. I may have to issue out an apology to Tom Euler, but he's going to be starting this race from the pole. No apologies about that brilliant qualifying performance, grabbing 2 poles for 2 in this race, meeting Adam Locke, the AM champion for 2024 in the European Championship. Going to be starting this race alongside him. Christopher Orderholt in 3rd. Gabriel Berger going to be starting in 4th, right behind his teammate Dorian Lievre in 5th. Adrian Fernandez in 6th. Gunnar Sennström going to be starting in 7th. Guy Robertson in 8th. Damian Guy going to be starting in 9th. Stefan Mellis going to be starting this race in 10th. Then we have J.R. Gregory, Apex Racing TV's own, in 11th. Charles Krasik in 12th. Hunter Reeve for TFG Racing, a veteran of the Operation Motorsport Series, which was broadcasted here on Apex Racing TV about a month ago. He's going to be starting in 13th. Cedric Oyahan in 14th. And Luis Pires going to round out your 15-car grid for this race. And waiting for that green flag to come out, all the drivers are lined up, getting those 5 lights on, and waiting for that run into turn number 1. The green flag is out, and the drivers are on their way. Looking like a pretty even kill start with both of our front row sitters, but Euler going to have that outside line, the advantageous position, leading them heading down into turn number 1. Looking at a side-by-side fight involving Adam Locke in the 555 car and Christopher Orderholt, the Norwegian, running in 3rd at the moment as the field heads their way through the Senna S's onto the back straightaway for the first time. It's Euler in front of Locke, in front of Orderholt. Some drivers going side by side a little bit farther in the back. I believe that was Adrian Fernandez having some connection issues in that car, currently running in 6th.
Well, we've got 30 minutes to find out who is going to be our AM champion for this entire season. It's been building up all the way until February, and this is all what it comes down to. As Stenstrud there, hopefully going to have a better race than he did at VIR. He's currently in 8th place, and he just needs to stay there, potentially gain a few places, making up some positions from mistakes from cars up ahead, as Lievre, unfortunately, I think, didn't have the qualifying that he would have wanted, as he qualified in 5th. I was definitely expecting a little bit better from the Frenchman, maybe towards the 3rd or 2nd row of the grid. But unfortunately, he just had to settle for that 5th place spot and has got some work to do, as Euler, unsurprisingly, is already checking out at the front of the field, nearly a second already between himself and Adam Locke. The slipstream here is fairly powerful, as it always is in these radicals, as Lievre getting very close to Orderholt as we head into turn 1. That looks like a fairly simple overtake for Lievre, but he locks up on the inside and loses the place to Gabriel Berger, so he's down to 5th again, as Stefan Mellis taking the runoff and into the grass, heading through the Senna S's. Manages to rejoin the track safely though, and is now down to 13th place. So a couple mistakes from these drivers already very early on here at Interlagos.
Yeah, the mistakes piling up already, and unlike real life where you got a bit more asphalt runoff area, this scan of iRacing's Interlagos is a little bit different. 3 wide at the end of the Heto Pasta, heading down into turn number 4. That was a near disaster for those drivers. J.R. Gregory in the midst of that hornet's nest of SR10 drivers, as slideways as Charles Krasik charging up and around the racetrack like he's got a charging rhino chasing him. He goes mega sideways, dropping down to 13th, but Krasik well held, holding onto a car that looked like a bucking Broncos. We see Hunter Reeve maybe trying to get moved on Mellis, heading off into turn number 10. Mellis going off the track. He is going to concede that position to Hunter Reeve, but Krasik, holy cow, that was the save of a lifetime.
It really was, but I think he actually made contact with Gregory as they headed into turn 6. I think he just got really close to him, made a slight tap on the rear, and it just sent his car nearly spinning. Very good car control to keep it on the road, to be fair, and good avoidance from everyone else, who I genuinely thought was going to just crash straight into him. As Oyahan now going around the outside at turn 1, now into the inside, as that was someone going off and to turn 1. I think that was Perez further behind, who locked up there, as Krasik, actually no, it was Krasik, I honestly, I'm blind, as he was the driver who made a mistake battling with Oyahan and now is under pressure from Perez as we head into to see the Interlagos, and Perez manages to overtake, albeit a little bit aggressive, doing the Verstappen, not quite as dramatic as Verstappen, but pushing Krasik to the outside of the track.
These drivers are still racing oh so hard. They're battling as if we're at the final lap of the race. We're 4 minutes into a 30-minute long race, folks. Euler still pulling out. He is now leading this race by about 2 seconds over Adam Locke in second, Alderholt in third. Berger rounding out your top 4 as it stands at the moment, with Dorian Lievre a little bit farther in the back of shots. Gotta say, at the moment, it's not as close of a pack that we saw in the VIR race earlier on, but Locke, Alderholt, Berger, Lievre, and Fernandez not covered by a whole lot of time as it stands at the moment. It's not like they're packed in like sardines. However, you can still cover them with quite a sizable blanket up towards the front of this field. I gotta say, though, they can't get lost track in a battle like they did earlier on at VIR. If they were to catch up to Euler and shuffle him back, that would really be the only way that these drivers have a shot of winning this race when everything is said and done. Winning this championship, I should say. Dorian Lievre is currently in P2 in the points, 19 on the board, 2 back of Euler, and as it stands at the moment, it would just be Euler absolutely dominating this World Finals, grabbing the pole and the win in both of those races, as we see some side-by-side action here involving Robertson and Stenstrom.
Yeah, Euler is just checking out. He was half a second quicker than anyone else on that previous lap, which just goes to show just how much quicker he is than the rest of the field. And yeah, definitely getting the feeling that he should not be in the AM category, at least for these 2 races, as his iRating is a lot higher than a lot of other people. I think he is about nearly 2k higher than the next closest driver, so yeah, probably should be a pro driver, but I mean, hey, judging by his performances in the European Series a few months ago, you know, he should be an AM, but then he can do performances like he has done today, so I don't know. Tom Mueller is a weird one, very weird case, but I mean, hey ho, he's showing amazing pace right now. Would have loved to have seen what he'd be like against the top drivers, as Adam Locke and Oterholt still battling for second place, as Lievre locking up into turn 1 again. He's really struggling for brake control in this car at this track, as Krasik now has gone into the pits as well. Back onto the point, definitely would like to see Tom Mueller go wheel to wheel with some of the pros, because I genuinely think he could give some of them a run for their money, potentially even a top 5 as Locke going wide. I wonder how much practice the guys would have had for this race, not just in this session, but just as a whole. From what I heard from the Project 91 team earlier on in the YouTube chat, they didn't get that much practice in. And, well, they're doing a fantastic job. 2nd and 4th with barely any practice.
Well, thankfully for these drivers, albeit it was, I mean, during the 2024 Radical European and Americas Championship, but was a couple of seasons ago in the world of iRacing when this series was running at this racetrack, and a lot of these drivers got their last splash of Interlagos running in a Radical SR10 Aaron, you've been a part of those Friday official broadcasts, so you can confirm or deny this. Tell me as to whether or not I am talking out my hind end. I believe Interlagos may be on this current iRacing season schedule, so would that be the last time that a lot of these drivers have gotten the chance to run this car around this racetrack, or am I just spewing hot air?
Oh, not too fair, Ron. You are not tweaking. It is, in fact, the Week 13 race that we go to Interlagos, which I believe it is the first time that this Radical Series will have 13 weeks instead of the normal 12. So, you know, during that off week in iRacing, these guys can still go racing. So that's always good, isn't it? And, well, a bit controversial, though, as usually we finish the season in these Radicals in the Nordschleife, as we're going in 3 wide. JR, please be careful as we head, as we head into Descida de Largo. And Hunter Reeve round the outside, very brave on JR, but what is Gregory going to do into turn 6? Can he hold it round the outside? He's going to give it a go, but you just wash out there and needs to be careful not to make contact with Mellis behind, who's looking awfully racy. He goes up the inside of Gregory now. And Gregory got to be careful as he's sliding his way through turn 9 and loses 2 places, unfortunately, in the space of about 3 corners. So Gregory's got a bit of work to do over these next few laps to try and gain back at least one of those places, as Hunter Reeve has just checked out in front of these guys. He's nearly a second. He is actually over a second ahead of Mellis already. So yeah, the Hunter Reeve putting down some good pace in that middle sector, and now it's just a battle for 11th place between Mellis, Gregory and Oyahan.
Yeah, these drivers still giving us a lot of excitement in this race. Oyahan still running in 13th at the moment. Maybe going to try and get a move done on Gregory, heading down the start-finish straightaway off into turn number 1. They're going to be side-by-side as Gregory maybe trying to get a move done on Mellis, the Belgian, heading down into the first corner. Oyahan still on the outside line, turning back into the inside, turning back into the outside as they go through the Sen S's, through Curva del Sol onto that straightaway as Mellis goes for a spin, heading through turn number 3. He's going to have to pull off the 578-point turn to rejoin the racetrack without catching out one of his competitors, Pyrez, overtaking him, as we see Oyahan and Gregory battle a little bit farther up the road. Oyahan in the 9 car briefly got moved on Gregory. However, Gregory going to be trying to fight back, heading down now, nearly making contact, heading into turn number 6, but J.R. Gregory going to finally get that move done to slip his way up into the 11th position, but they nearly came to blows about 5 times.
Yeah, they're battling very, very closely, and that's exactly what you want to see in these types of races. People's just going absolute balls to the wall, giving each other absolutely no room, but still somehow managing to keep it on the road. It's only when they inevitably crash that it's like, oh dear, that's a bit of a shit. But we are getting some fantastic racing in the mid-pack so far. In this race, as Robertson now having a pretty good race up in 7th. That's one of the highest places I've seen him so far. He's battling with Stenstrud as he goes into turn 1 looking for the overtake, but Robertson's going to try and hang it around the outside. Go on, Robertson, as he makes his way back into 7th place. Stenstrud, try as he might, could not get that overtake done. Very, very brave from Robertson, and just about holding on to that 7th place. But we're heading into turn 4, which is a good overtaking opportunity, but Stenstrud and Guy just weren't close enough this time round.
Yeah, it's going to be that game of cat and mouse continuing between those 2 racers. We'll have to see how things are going to shake out in terms of that fight. They still got a lot of time left in their back pockets. Running through the math in my head, it would be about 28.5 minutes left for these racers now, with 11.5 on the clock. Robertson still going side by side with Stenstrud as they head through the middle sector at this point. Coming out of turn number 9 right now, Robertson running as close as he dared to the outside grass, as now Guy looking to try and fight with Stenstrud, heading through turn number 10 right now. Looks like they're going to stay line astern. I think overtaking through that middle sector, it's not going to work out well for your Aaron at all, just for the simple sake that coming out of that corner jump-cell of turn number 12, you're flat out all the way to that start-finish line. So these drivers not going to go for a move through the middle sector, because on this start-finish straightaway, even with the turns baked into it, you still got a good overtaking opportunity for you to pass another car. Speaking of side-by-side between Robertson and Stenstrud, Robertson dropping back. That's actually Senshot and Guy that they're going side by side with, heading into turn number 1. Now Robertson and Guy nearly coming to blows, heading off into turn number 1. Looked like Guy Robertson, the number 6, nearly tried to bump and run, heading off into the first corner at the very beginning of this lap. But this fight is still very much on between these racers, running effectively as in no man's land as we take a look at a replay of an incident possibly involving Christopher Arderholt.
Well, I'm going to have a guess he tried to go for a move on Adam Locke into turn 1 and potentially had a bit of an incident. No, from what I'm hearing, it's just a battle between these guys as they still fighting very, very hard. In the background as well, you can see Berger going for a bit of a spin there, as I think he tried to look on a move on the lever, but just was not close enough on this occasion, as Adam Locke doing a fantastic job of holding on to that second place, because necessarily Adam hasn't been the quickest driver today. He's been, you know, relatively top 5, but he's just been relatively good at that defensive driving, and especially at a track like this and VIR where the slipstream is very, very powerful. He is doing a very, very nice job holding on to the second at the moment, especially around this Interlagos circuit, as the lever trying to look at a move on Otterholt. I think he just pulled out a bit too early there if he was really thinking about going for that move. But maybe these guys being a little bit more timid than they were at VIR, but Lelive is very close to Otterholt now. He definitely has the chance to go for the move. He's not following the slipstream of Otterholt, so still being a bit passive, I think, is the Frenchman, as Gregory, unfortunately, has come into the pits. I think JR's picked up some damage somewhere. Unfortunately, as Lelive, I was saying he was being timid, but, well, there he is being timid. He was briefly going to go for a move on the Norwegian, but just thought better of it. And definitely some drivers being a little bit more cautious here at Interlagos.
I think they're also being a little bit cautious for the simple sake that I don't think they feel very confident in their chances at this point. Aaron, coming up to the halfway mark of this second race for the AM drivers, and it's about 9.5 seconds, 6.5 seconds, my apologies, between Euler and Adam Locke in first and second, respectively. You can see Lievre, as we were riding on board with him, hang down the hill through turn number 11. You could just see the dirty air playing such havoc with these racers. Lievre nearly turning 90 degrees to the left, just trying to keep that car on the road through a very fast section, which is not a sharp corner by any means. So Lievre really feeling the burn of that dirty air, and I think around a racetrack like this, unless you're going for a move into turn number 1 or at the end of turn number 4, it's usually just follow the leader, which is tough for these drivers and tough for their tires as well. Won't have to worry about pit stops, won't have to worry about fuel saving or anything of the sorts. These drivers are just going to be pushing it to the absolute limit all throughout this race. But that dirty air is going to wreak havoc for these racers. Gotta say, one thing that's wreaking havoc at the moment is Berger's airnet connection. You can see him blipping in and out of existence. I think the UFOs are trying to get in contact with him, running in the 5th place as it stands at the moment. So we'll keep our eyes on that to see if Berger gets sucked up into that UFO and disappears off of our screen. As side by side heading off into turn number 6, Christopher Arderholt now on the outside line with Dorian Lievre. Ganga moved on him to slip his way up into the final spot. Well done from the Frenchman. That was slick.
Yeah, he just put Otterholt off a little bit going into turn 6. Managed to go on the inside and just about sneaked ahead enough to close the door into turn 8. And now with him into 3rd, can he challenge for 2nd place into a good points-paying position? Of course, it still won't be enough to challenge Tom Euler, unfortunately. But it's still going to be good for him to say that, apart from Tom, he probably would have won this championship. So I guess that's something to brag about, as the slipstream not gaining as much time on this straight to Adam Locke as I think he'd like. Needs to be careful into this first corner. We've seen him lock up here a few times already. Just needs to keep his cool over these next 13 or so minutes. Not long left to go now. We're just over halfway into this last AM race, and Adam Locke still doing a good job holding on to that 2nd place.
And Locke driving possibly the widest Radical SR10 race car seen anywhere on God's green earth. Adam Locke running in the second position for the time being. I gotta say, that gap to himself and Euler, it's not really increasing as much as it was earlier on. Still, it's 6.1 seconds, so it's definitely an advantage to the German of Euler. Now officially halfway into this race. But looking at that fight involving Locke, Lievre, and Otterholt, I'm curious how hard they are going to continue to fight. If they battle too hard, they may get Gabriel Berger involved in that to turn from a 3-car fight into a 4-car fight. Berger still dealing with those connection issues as we just saw him disappear coming out of turn number 10. But I'm curious how these drivers are going to tackle this battle. Whether you're Locke, Lievre, or Otterholt, are you going to battle hard just thinking, hey, there's really no hope of winning this race? Or do you think you're going to try and play the patient game and maybe hope for some sort of collision for Euler? Even if he were to drop down to P2 behind Locke, he'd still end up winning it. But right now, Locke trying to get a defensive move as Lievre trying to get an overtaking maneuver done on him. Side by side, hang through the braking zone of 1. Locke going to hold on to that spot for now. Dorian Lievre is really the main challenger to Euler in terms of the points, but as it stands at the moment, it's still very much advantage Euler as he's 6.7 seconds farther up the road from the Frenchman, the number 14 car, as you can see the shimmy sham hang down the back straightaway off into turn number 4.
Oh, I think there might have been a slight nudge there from Locke as he came back across to use the racing line, and Lievre going to try the outside into turn 6, but there's just not enough grip on the outside into this corner. It's ever so slightly off camber on the outside, and it just washes you out. You get onto the marbles, you understeer off, and like we saw with Otterholt a few laps ago, it just leaves you vulnerable for the cars behind to go up your inside and take a free position from you. As I think Euler on the last lap made some kind of mistake. He lost 2 seconds nearly. And, well, of course, on this lap, he's just gaining it all back again. But I think it might have been a mistake into turn 1, potentially for Euler. Maybe went a bit deep and lost about a second and a half. But, I mean, realistically, it's not put too much of a dent in his lead. It's still 7 seconds out in front. As here comes the Frenchman, once again, going to try the outside, which didn't work last lap. And he's going to try it again, as Adam Locke still brilliantly defending this second place. And if I'm being honest, Lievre is going to have to try some kind of Ricciardo-esque dummy move. That's kind of what I'd try. Just let off the throttle ever so slightly before the braking zone and then switch back to the inside to catch your opponent out. But Lievre going for the easier option as he tries round the outside at Tessida de Largo. If he can hold on to this, it will be the inside line for turn 6, a little bit wide for Lievre, but he's edging ahead of Adam Locke now. He just needs to keep it together into turn 6. Adam is doing a brilliant job holding it around the outside. He's still braking very, very late as we head into turn 8, now into turn 9. Adam is still just about there and giving Lievre a really, really tough time. But that's pretty much all Adam can do. Briefly looked up the inside, nearly tapping the back of the Frenchman as they headed into turn 10. But that was kind of all Adam could do. And now, can Lievre pull away from these guys? Or is it just going to be round 2 as we head into the main straight once again between all 4 of these cars, separated by just about 1 second?
Yeah, this fighting is still so intense, and considering that we are slowly but surely approaching the checkered flag with less than 9 minutes left on the clock, these drivers gotta feel even more racy side by side. Locke and Lievre heading into turn number 1. Locke going to overcook it and spin off the track. That's Adam Locke trying to get a move done back on Dorian Lievre. I did not have a good feeling about that at all, Aaron. Seeing him overcook it into turn number 1, I knew as soon as I saw that speed differential that he was going to take a one-way trip into that grass on the outside of turn number 1. That's exactly what happened. He's dropping down to 6th, now falling into the crutches of Adrian Fernandez, who haven't really talked about too much in this race meeting, in the number 127 ADRA esports entry. This is going to be a fight that we may have to keep our eyes on, but Locke spinning out what could have been a P2 result. Advantage Lievre in terms of that, but in all that battling, that gap to themselves and Euler now about 8.5 seconds.
Yeah, honestly, Euler could probably go for a spin or get a slowdown and still be ahead of Lelive and Otterholt. So that's just how big of a lead that he has at the moment. And well, speaking of Lelive and Otterholt, I wonder if the Norwegian might be able to maybe put some pressure on Lelive. I'm not sure. I think Otterholt has been struggling for paces. Damien Guy, who was having such a good race, has unfortunately gone for an spin and has lost out to, I think, Hunter Reeve there, who's made his way into 8th. As Hunter Reeve has had a pretty good race. He's up 5 places now into 8th. A little bit too far back to gain any more places, but you never know what can happen in these races. Any kind of crash or mistake from Stenstrud or Fernandez or whoever else, and he could find himself potentially in the top 6 by the end of this race. He's done very, very well so far.
Yeah, I gotta say, a lot of these drivers have been putting together some pretty well-composed drives. Hunter Reeve up 5 spots where he started in this race. Cedric Oyahan up 4. Really throughout this field, a little bit interesting to note the fact that there's only 3 drivers on this grid that have made up positions from where they started. Dorian Lievre, he's up 3. Hunter Reeve is up 5. Cedric Oyahan up 4. Outside of that, though, everyone's either stayed in their spot or lost out on some positions. So a little odd, the kind of racing that we're seeing here at Interlagos, but it's still been pretty intriguing to follow. But at this point in time, slowly approaching the end of this race, coming up to just 6 minutes to go for these AM drivers to try and crown a champion. It looks like that commentator's jinx really hasn't hurt him, as maybe hasn't even hit at all. It may not hit, who knows, it may get caught up in some package-related difficulties at the post office, but right now, Euler still leading at 8.3 seconds back is Dorian Lievre. Euler, I mean, we kind of outlined him as the favorite heading into this second race for the AM drivers. As much as my voice was kind of giving out as I slowly started choking on some water as I was trying to say it, Euler was the favorite, still is the favorite, and considering that he has an 8-second lead with less than 6 minutes left to go in this race, I say Euler at this point, he's probably just cruising it to bring it on home.
Yeah, not long left to go now until Tom Euler is probably, I'm saying probably because I do not want to jinx him, and then my head will be on a spike probably, but he's not got long left now until he can pick up what has been a relatively easy 2 race victories for him. And only 5 minutes to go now as Oyahan gaining quite quickly there on Damien Guy. I'm not sure if Damien was just backing out of that one. I think he was, and just let the Canadian go on through. As Damien was being very, very tentative going towards turn 4, and definitely, I think, just settling for that 10th place spot. As Berger still blipping in and out of existence. I've no idea what's just suddenly happened to his internet connection, but it's definitely gotten worse over the course of this race. I don't know if, you know, his internet is struggling to connect to this Interlagos race circuit or what, but he's still here. Let's hope he doesn't get disconnected from the race. That would be really bad for Gabriel Berger. As we head on to lap 18 then. Only about 4 minutes to go left in this race. And not too many fights really going on now. Just kind of getting towards the end of the race as Adam Locke there with another mistake. And he's really lost it after losing that 2nd place. And potentially Fernandez could be looking at an overtake here. Looking towards the inside, but just wasn't brave enough on the brakes. And I think Adam is the quicker driver, and I think he'll just pull away again. But, you know, Adam is driving a bit suspect at the moment.
Yeah, that car is not looking locked down at all, so Adam Locke running into some difficulties, boiling here under the hot conditions at Interlagos, and that's a point that was brought up by, we'll call him the Radical SimRacing head honcho of Sandro Capeller. He's a very nice gentleman, does a lot of work here with Apex to try and make all of these broadcasts possible. You see Robertson very slow heading through the corner. Right as I was looking away from my screen, here is a replay of an incident that just went down between himself and Charles Krasik heading down into turn number 1. A little bit of contact there. You can see Krasik sideways, slideways through turn number 1, and then hits the side of Robertson, spinning him around. So that's going to be tough for the both of them. Some damage on those race cars to be sure. Getting back to the point that I was going to mention, the conditions here are scorching. It's about 76 degrees Fahrenheit in terms of the ambient temperature. In terms of the track temperature, though, it is 111 degrees Fahrenheit, and you can see it right there with the graphics that we have. I believe, just from my perspective, it's up in American units, but I believe the other broadcast is showing in it's showing in Eurobabble to say that actually no, it is showing in American in American format there in Fahrenheit. So I'll have to hit the books to figure out exactly what that is from Fahrenheit to Celsius. But have it be known, it's quite hot out there at Interlagos at this point in time. The ambient temperature about 24.5 degrees Celsius. Yeah, 44 degrees, 43.8 to be a bit more precise, but either way, it is a scorcher here at Interlagos. And as much as cold tires can be a problem for these racers, I think overheating tires may be the order that some of these drivers are having to deal with at this point, now with less than 2 minutes to go.
Oh, dearie me, that's a very weird spin that I've never seen before. Managed to catch it very, very well, Adrian Fernandez. But just coming out of turn 9 there, got onto the outside curb. I don't know if he just got a bit of wheel spin on that curb and spun up the rear tyres. I'm not sure, but that was a very, very awkward spin for Fernandez. But it didn't really cost him anything in the end. Yeah, going back onto the temperature talk, I've never seen a track temp so much hotter than the ambient temperature as Berger. Oh, it's so scary watching a driver who's having a bit of internet trouble trying to race someone. It's if any of you have done this in iRacing and you've tried to race someone who's blipping in and out, it is absolutely terrifying as he's being very aggressive towards the inside, and that's inevitable contact with Otterholt, sending him spinning. And I think most of us could see that one coming from a mile away, as Berger kind of went for an inside line that wasn't there. Very sportsmanlike to let him back on through. And he's going to lose out to Adrian Fernandez as well, potentially. But, yeah, that's... I think you'll agree with me, Ron. That one was kind of inevitable by the looks of it.
Oh yeah, it absolutely was, just based off the fact it was a little bit of a sneak attack from Berger. I mean, bearing in mind the connection issues were bad enough, him blinking in, out of existence, getting sucked up into a UFO. But when he was there, just not, oh, that is a low percentage move if ever I saw one. Gabriel Berger, the driver of the number 25 car, a pretty nice driver, pretty nice guy as well. That was just never going to work. But a driver who's worked his magic in this Radical SR10, Tom Mueller, going to go 2 for 2 in the race wins and become your 2024 Radical World Finals AM winner in dominating fashion over Dorian Lievre in P2. He's also got to be your P2 finisher in the World Finals as well. He finishes 7.2 seconds back of Mueller. Have to go a little bit farther back to Adam Luck, who ends up occupying the final podium position, considering that drama involving Otterholt and Berger towards the end of that race. Christopher Otterholt, I'm sure, is going to be fuming with the driver of the number 25 car. I'm sure there will be some apologies issued that way. Berger already issued out an apology. I can't necessarily blame him because that was a low percentage move if ever I saw one. Gotta say, though, Otterholt still seems a little bit ticked off. One driver who's certainly not unhappy at all is Tom Mueller. He was our favorite heading into this second race after a convincing performance at VIR earlier on today. But Tom Mueller capping off a beautiful day here on Sunday, November the 17th, to become your 2024 Radical World Finals AM champion.
Yeah, he's just pretty much shown the rest of the field what he's about. Didn't really give anyone a chance in either session, qualifying or the race, or in either race that they had any chance of getting those prizes. And, wow, it's been one of the more dominant performances I've seen across this entire season, as everyone else finishing their own respective races. And a bit of a shame that we couldn't get a bit more of a championship fight, but hey, we've got the pros coming up, so maybe they can offer something that the AMs couldn't.
Yeah, they're going to have to deal with those same hot track conditions, but there's a lot up in store for those drivers. But Tom Euler going to take the checkered flag and become your 2024 Radical World Finals AM champion, picking up a nice watch and a year subscription to racedata.ai in the process. He finishes in front of Dorian Lievre in P2. He's also going to get some pretty nice prizes as well as the second place runner in the AM category. That's going to be Adam Locke finishing right behind in third. Christopher Autoholt going to finish this race in fourth. Adrian Fernandez in fifth. Then we have Gabriel Berger finishing this race in sixth. Gunnar Senstrud, who I think we just saw hit the pit attenuator in the back of shot. He finishes this race in seventh. Hunter Reeve going to finish in eighth. Cedric Oyahan in ninth. Damian Gee going to finish in 10th, Stefan Mellis in 11th, J.R. Gregory going to finish this race in the 12th position, Charles Krasik in 13th, Guy Robertson in 14th, Luis Pyra is going to round out your 15 cars classified from this final AM race of the day. It's not the final race of the day, though. Coming up in just a couple of moments' time, we're going to be crowning a pro champion. There's a lot of drivers who we may see in contention for that victory, both the race victory and the event victory as well. So you better stay tuned here on Apex Racing TV. The action's been good so far. Let's see if we can go 4 for 4 after these messages.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, You owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, it all comes down to this. This is the final race for the 2024 Radical Sim Racing World Finals here on Apex Racing TV. The AM's already taken care of. We congratulate Tom Mueller on becoming your 2024 Radical Sim Racing World Finals Amateur Champion. The pros are still left to be decided. This is going to be a really hectic race, 30 minutes long. The drivers are going to be boiling. The track temperatures still boiling hot in this part of the session as well. Currently in the midst of this qualifying session at the moment, and these track temperatures still blisteringly hot. It's 77 degrees Fahrenheit, around about 24 C, and in terms of the track temperature, it's steadily going up. As I've begun this yap, it was at about 102. It's now up to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is a boiling racetrack that these drivers are going to have to deal with. There's only so much a tire can endure, but 40 degrees Celsius track temperatures are certainly not one of them. Aaron, in that amateur race we just saw earlier on, it was a race really dictated by those weather conditions, with Euler running away with the checkered flag and the championship in the process. Here, though, with the pro drivers, it's a bit more up in the air. It's really close. So I think even though the AM race was really dictated by the weather, I feel like the same cannot be said about the pro race we have coming up.
Well, and it's only going to get hotter as these guys go round and round the track. It's about 40 degrees right now, and yeah, the sun is beaming down on this Interlagos circuit, and yeah, it's going to be about 5 degrees hotter, I think, once we get into the race. So if these cars aren't understeering already, well, they definitely are going to be as we head into the race. And yeah, like you said, in that race session, we did see some drivers really struggling towards the end to hang on to those overheating Michelin tyres. And a couple lockups as well, a couple spins as well, just make it so much worse. And then it's just an inevitable cycle of you know, overheating the tyres, spinning because they're so hot, and then overheating them again. And yeah, it goes round and round in a loop. As James Barry right now has not currently set a good enough lap, and a bit worrying for James. He needs to get a move on if he wants any chance of taking this championship come the end of today's race. As he comes across the line, is it actually going to be a respectful time? Relatively, it's a 5th place for James. He's got, I think, 1 more lap to go. So he's going to have to push like hell as Lip comes across the line. This looks like it's going to be a good lap, and it is. So we are into the 28s. I did say that the pros might be able to get into them, and, well, Christoph Lip has just done that. And that's a very, very quick lap time from Christoph Lip. And this is what I mean. In the races, you just have to pressure Christoph and overtake him as soon as you can on that first lap. Because if you don't, well, he's just going to start setting lap after lap after lap, and there will be no catching him.
Yeah, Christoph Lip looking to try and set the pace, as we saw with Euler. If you lead lap 1, you have a really good shot of leading the rest of the race. However, you got to build up that gap. That's going to be big. And in terms of having a pace differential like, I don't know, 0.341 of a second, you may find yourself in a really good spot. Christoph Lip on that provisional pole for the time being over fellow German Andres Friedrich. Lip enters this final race of the evening with the points lead, 21 on the board compared to Barry's 19. So let's see if that gap is going to increase or decrease. Who's going to be the champion? That remains to be determined. Coming across the line is Ryan Odo off the back of a disappointing run at VIR earlier on today. It does not look like it's going to be an improvement from Ryan Odo, as he's still slotted in 3rd at the moment. Last time by was only about a 10th slower than his best lap, so not going to improve. However, still finds himself in 3rd. There's Barry coming across the line to slip his way up into 6th. However, that's still not a brilliant qualifying result from James Berry. If we're being brutally honest, James, a very fast racer in these Radical SR10s. Of course, he is the reigning Radical Esports Cup champion, the 2024 European champion as well, and he currently leads the Season 4 of 2024 Radical Esports Cup iRacing official series points. So he is a blisteringly quick driver in these Radical SR10s, but 6th at the moment. That's not a great result for Barry. I mean, he needs to take the fight to Christoph Lipp. But a P6 starting position, that would not do it for him.
No, that's not where James wants to be at all. But it is where he is, and there's no if or buts about it. And I think Greshtenbachen and Bjorklund are the only two drivers who still need to set their respective lap times. And to be fair, Greshtenbachen's lap does actually look quite good this time around. He's just set a purple sector 3, and this could actually put him on the front row of the grid, potentially, as he comes across the line. What is it going to be from Matt Greshtenbachen? And it is. It puts him second place. Very, very good final lap for the Norwegian, and that was very unexpected, and well, that's going to be a qualifying session to be proud of for him. But still, unfortunately, 3.5 tenths off of Christoph Lipp, who just looks absolutely dominant. It's why are the Germans? Oh dear, Bjorklund. That's not the way to do it. But I was going to say, why are the Germans so dominant today? Oh, it's just making it boring. Come on.
I gotta say, Aaron, I think your PC may be German just based off of it. Sound like your PC about bursts into flames with the connection issues. That's just at least my end. That was. I think that is there, I think it may be an issue on my end. This is not a deal.
Is it just me? Okay, I don't know what is going on. I think Discord might be pooping itself. Not quite sure what's going on there. We do apologise for those technical issues, but going to run through the grid with you now. Christoph Lipp taking that so important pole position, and that puts him in prime position to win this next race, and importantly the championship. Greshtenbachen with a very, very impressive qualifying session in second place. Andreas Friedrich in third, Odo in fourth, Sorensen in fifth, Kirakopoulos in sixth, Barry seventh, very poor qualifying from him. Marignani in 8th, Sanchez 9th, Gonzaga in 10th, Richard in 11th, Scaretta down in 12th, another poor qualifying from him. Larson 13th, Haug in 14th, Wrighton in 15th, Harmon in 16th, Bernaldi in 17th, Bjorklund in 18th, and Mike Busson in 19th and last place. Ron, have you indeed returned from the Shadow Realm?
I believe I have, after a stern call
yes.
to my internet providers. The power of a verbal threat, everybody, but ready to get things up and rolling for the final race of this World Finals. Christoph Lipp starting it from the pole. He's going to be leading them, hopefully, heading down into turn number 1. His main contender of Barry is all the way down in 7th, so this is going to be a fight for Barry and a battle of defensive maneuvers for Christoph Lipp. If you can hold on to take the checkered flag, he'll become your World Final champion no matter what. But waiting for that green flag to come out and the lights to go off, the green flag's down, the drivers are on their way. It's a long run into turn number 1. It feels like forever. Look at Andreas Friedrich with a brilliant start. The German in the number 12 car feeling really racy early on, not close enough to get moved on Lipp. He's still side by side with Greshtenbachen heading through the Senna S's for the first time. Look at Ryan Odo, the young American, also feeling really racy at this point, running on the 4th spot for now. However, he may try and make it 3 wide as they head down the back straightaway off into turn number 4 for the first time in this race. Look at Odo on that inside line. Got off to a rough start at VIR, trying to get off to a flyer here at Interlagos, slipping his way up into 2nd. That is a brilliant start for the young American. He's going to be leading Greshtenbachen, who's slotted in 3rd. Lipp beginning to pull away, though. This is a dream start for the German, side by side still, heading their way off through 6 and 7 at the very beginning of this race. Look at Friedrich maybe try and get a move done again on Greshtenbachen. Look at Sorensen and Kyriakopoulos. They're side by side right behind. Barry running in 7th. James Barry in the number 10 car, the insert name eRacing team driver, He is the reigning he's the reigning European champion, and he needs to make hay while the sun is shining. He's a fast driver in this car, to be sure, but he needs to not get caught up in the red mist, not get caught up in anybody's difficulties, and pass some racers that he's driven with before as if it's nobody's business. Dennis Kyriakopoulos, though, is giving him one hell of a fight heading through the final sector. They nearly came to blows heading into Jungsau for the first time. That's going to be Lip leading over Odo, leading over Brock and Friedrich and Sorensen, completing our top 5 as Barry finally gets a move done to slip his way up into 6th, but punching the hole in the air, he's going to be a sitting duck as Kyriakopoulos, Ianni, and Sanchez nearly going to make it 3 wide. They will make it 3 wide. Look at Ianni running off the track, heading into turn number 1. Kyriakopoulos and Barry. This is not the start that Barry wanted to have at all. So let's see contact. Gonzaga going around. That's George Gonzaga, the teammate to Barry, having a major source of drama, and contact being made more with Eric Harmon running into the back of him. Looks like those two going to rejoin the race. Harmon, the American, making contact with Gonzaga, the Portuguese driver. Very hectic start to this race, though, Aaron.
Yes, it's honestly, it was so hard to keep track of everything that was going on. But while everything was going on from 2nd all the way down to 19th, Christoph Lipp has had the absolute dream start. He's nearly 2 seconds ahead of Odo already. And, well, I said that's what they can't afford to do because Christoph will just run away. But unfortunately, they all ignored me, and Christoph is now running away. So we may not get a battle for the lead in this race, unfortunately, as that's a huge pack of cars checking up as we come out of turn 10. And all that's a biggie off, Skretz off into the wall, and he is going to be down and out of that one. Somehow his car has survived a massive whack into the wall. I say that, I don't think it's quite survived, as that front left suspension is not attached to his automobile, so he's going to have to come back to the pit lane and come in to fix his car, and that's going to be the end of his day, pretty much. We won't see him for the rest of this race, as Sorensen, now the man who could have won the previous race at VIR, now battling with Andreas Friedrich, looking to the outside, but there wasn't a space there for him to slot his car into. And now, finally, I think everyone can take a bit of a breather. Unless Sorensen thinks, I'm going to go for a move into this next corner, which he does. As I don't think he was close enough on this occasion, but he definitely thought about it.
Yeah, he tried to go for that move, just wasn't close enough on Andreas Friedrich, heading down into 6 and 7. Sorensen feeling really racy, was involved in that dramatic incident with himself and Odo at the beginning of the VIR race earlier on today. So hoping that he doesn't have any sort of contact, Sorensen had a really up and down show there. He got involved in that incident with Odo heading into turn number 1 on lap 1 at the very start of that race. Then he dropped back, then he got back into the lead of the race and was running comfortably in front of the likes of Barry and Friedrich, but then he spun around. He lost out on the lead, and then Sorensen found himself on the back foot massively, running as far down as 6th, but because of some drama, he ended up finishing in 3rd. Barry right now is running in 6th, not making any sort of inroads and slowly losing touch with Sorensen up in front. So Barry at this point in time really struggling in terms of pace. I'm not sure about you, Aaron. Barry, a very fast driver. I've had many chats with him at the end of some of these broadcasts as we see his teammate George Gonzaga go off the track in the 113 car, now side by side with himself and Busan hang through turn 2. But Barry, I don't know about you, Aaron. I think we're slowly seeing his chances of a World Finals Championship win begin to slip through his fingers.
Well, it's just a very similar story to the AMS, isn't it? The German driver right at the front of the field, just romping away with it. So, you know, Barry, unfortunately, just really not showing the pace in this race at all. Maybe just not getting on with this Interlagos circuit. And it's unfortunate, since he was one of the drivers who we thought... Oh, excuse me there. As we thought he'd be able to take the fight to Christoph Lipp, but... unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case at the moment. Of course, still about 25 minutes to go, so anything can happen. But just looking at the chances at the moment, they are starting to slim. as the race goes on, and it just doesn't look like anyone can keep up with Christoph Lipp's pace. He was about half a second quicker than anyone else on that last lap, and coming across this lap, it was at least closer between the top 5 cars. They were all setting pretty much the same pace, actually, as Sanchez going wheel to wheel with Richard as we head through turns 1, 2, and now into turn 3. Richard just about managing to stay ahead of Sanchez, now coming down the Reta Aposta into Interlagos, one of the better overtaking opportunities around this track. Sanchez, a very aggressive driver, but just cannot get that move done around the outside on this occasion, and is going to have to sit back into 10th for the moment, as a Larson battling here with Bonolid for 12th place, as they are all eyeing up 11th as well, as Bjorklund is only about a few tenths ahead of the Canadian.
Yeah, Benelid and Bjorklund battling hard for P11 and P12 respectively. That was a lot of words that begin with B in the span of just a couple of seconds right now, but these drivers still quite close in certain sections of this field. Lipp leading at 2.2 seconds in front of Ryan Odo, already 7 minutes and 20 seconds into this 30-minute long race. So we may have another case on our hands of another German driver pulling away. We've gone 3 for 3 thus far in terms of Germans winning the races here for the World Finals. We'll have to wait and see if that's going to make, if it's going to be 4 for 4, or if a driver like, say, Ryan Odo is going to contend with Lipp for this victory. But Odo, who we're following right now, he's right in front of this man, Mats Jetstrom-Bakken. This is a kind of Odo that I was kind of talking about during that first pro race, Aaron. He is such a quick driver in these SR10s, and he can also get down and jiggy with it whenever he wants to, just battling hard, battling tooth and nail, and scraping and clawing for every single position that he can. The driver of the number 15 car, he's feeling really, really racy. Got those moves done at the very start, running in P2, and I gotta say, as much as Lipp is still in front, that gap isn't increasing or decreasing either. It's kind of staying about the same.
Yeah, it's just staying there, which is not good or bad. It's just kind of, you know, nothing's changing, which, I mean, what would you rather have? Would you rather 100% know that you're just going to be slower than Lipp and you can focus on the guys behind, or would you rather be like, okay, we're similar in pace, maybe if I push a little bit harder I can catch up? It's a difficult mindset to be in, and do you want to risk pushing that little bit more and slowly try and gain back the time on the leader? It's a difficult one, but I guess they've got nothing to lose really in this race, and especially Ryan Odo, who basically isn't going to be in contention for the points. He can kind of just do whatever he wants in this race, so I think I'd expect him to be pushing 100% in this race, as I mean, there's no reason not to. He doesn't have anything else to lose, so maybe Lipp can, you know, just make one tiny mistake so we can get an interesting race, please. I'm joking, I would never wish anything bad on a driver. I'm professional.
Professionalism here, folks, only on Apex Racing TV. James Berry running in the 6th spot as it stands at the moment. Still losing time to the pack in front. Still also feeling the burn from Dennis Kyriakopoulos and Myron Ianni behind as well. Lots of the drivers that you see in this race are ones that you'll see week in and week out in the Radical Esports Cup official broadcast every single Friday, 2100 GMT here on Apex Racing TV. Lots of these drivers have won in those races. Lots of them have done well. James Berry has done exceptionally well in that series, both this season and last. I don't know what it is about this track. I don't really remember him doing well around this racetrack from my previous experience doing those official broadcasts, Aaron. So I don't know what it is. I feel like James Berry and Interlagos mix. It's not even like oil and water. It's more like oil and pure sodium. It's an explosive reaction. He gets himself like this. Berry, who's usually a top-class driver in this series, and a top-class driver, period, mind you, with a very high credibility and I rating of about 6.3 thousand. Berry's a fast racer, do not get me wrong, but I don't know, it's something about this racetrack that's really causing him to struggle.
Yeah, I have seen this a few times with Barry, where it's just a track and car combination that he just doesn't get on well with, and he really does tend to struggle for pace, and I think today is just one of those days. And yeah, just really not liking this Interlagos circuit. But hey, I guess it's a good practice for about 2 or 3 weeks' time when we do go to Interlagos in the Friday Esports Cup session. And of course, that being the last round, could be a bit close in terms of the points. So definitely good to at least get some kind of experience and practice in for that race. But in terms of this race and here and now, it's not looking good for him. And yeah, I think he'll probably be a little bit annoyed with himself. But yeah, it's still a long race. I mean, we're talking like it's basically already over, but you know, still 20 minutes to go. But it is difficult as a driver to claw back that pace and claw back that time, because he's 2.5 seconds away from Sorensen even, so he's got a lot of time to make up there, let alone try and fight for the lead of the race, as Odo there was briefly blipping in and out of the session. And I think these 4 cars are in a bit of a state of limbo right now. It's a bit like a DRS train. They're all slipstreaming each other, keeping each other honest, but not quite close enough to fight.
I gotta say, at this point in time, Aaron, things are looking exceptionally good for Christoph Lipp in terms of winning these World Finals. As we said, he entered this second race of the day with the lead in the points, 21 on the board compared to Barry's 19. Barry at the moment finds himself down in 6th, which is not a good position at all. Then you have to go to Lasse Sorensen, who entered this race 3rd, 1 point back of Barry. He finds himself in 5th, while Lipp is still leading, so that's going to be no gusto there. Then in 4th is Dennis Kyriakopoulos, who's running at the moment behind Barry in 7th, so that's another no-hitter there. And then you have to go back to Myron Ianni in P5, where he's running at the moment 8th. So as it stands currently, 13 minutes into this 30-minute long race, it's looking very good for Christoph Lipp, who I feel like, Aaron, you are very much qualified to talk about the speed that Christoph Lipp has shown. He is very quick in these SR10s. The first time I remember him doing a race at all was actually a Radical official broadcast I was a part of all the way back in, I believe it was either season 1 or 2 of 2024, knocking on the doors of the opening race for both the European and America's Championship. Running at Monza, he was in contention for that race victory. I can't remember as to whether or not he was victorious in that race or not, but ever since I first saw Christoph Lipp in a Radical SR10 race car, he has been quick. Didn't get the job done in the 2024 European Championship, as Barry was the one to take that checkered flag there. Both a wristwatch and a year's subscription to racedata.ai on the cards. Looks like Lipp is going to have the upper hand as we quickly approach the halfway mark of this race. Only a minute until we hit that point, as we see contact being made with Andreas Frieder and Lasse Sorensen heading down into turn number 4. Whereas I was about to switch my attention to that battling we had going on. Contact made heading down into turn number 4.
Yeah, I didn't really get a good view of what on earth happened here, and I don't know what to make of that. Honestly, I think Friedrich was just on the inside, minding his own business, and Sorensen kind of turned in a little bit too early from the outside. I don't know. That's just another awkward one. We've had a lot of awkward incidents today, haven't we? And I imagine that won't be the last one, as we're just about getting towards the halfway point in this race. And yeah, still another about 10 laps to go before we can decide who our championship winner in the Pro is going to be. And obviously we've talked at an extensive point about Christoph Lipp in this race. But yeah, like you mentioned, in the season from February all the way until last month, he was very, very good for most of it. He just had 1 or 2 races where he would perform or just have some awful luck, and that would pretty much just ruin his title hopes. And I also get the feeling he struggles when being part of a pack and trying to overtake, but once he gets out in front, he is just electric. He's gone. He is amazing in clean air, as this fight with Sanchez and Richard and Friedrich is getting very, very hairy. As we head down into Interlagos, Sanchez trying around the outside, which is probably the ideal line through here, as it turns into the inside line now for turn 6. Can he just eke his car ahead of the American? It's Not looking likely, but now he has. That was very good launch off of the exit of turn 7. Now into turn 8, he's gotten into that 8th place. And Richard now probably is going to have to look at the cars behind, and especially Friedrich.
Looking at these drivers still battling as hard as they possibly can. Now over the halfway mark now, 16 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock to the end of this race meeting for the 2024 Radical World Finals. Quickly approaching, that is for darn sure. It has been a really dramatic race meeting thus far. But bearing in mind, folks, Radical SR10 action never ends here on Apex Racing TV with the Radical Esports Cup running every single Friday. But here for the World Finals, these drivers treating us to some pretty good racing at this point. Ryland Richard in that number 69 car, now trying to get moved on Sanchez heading into turn number 1. Richard carrying a lot of speed, too much speed, heading his way into the grass. That's going to be a simple mistake, costing him a couple of spots. Gotta say, Ryland, a driver in the Americas Series, he had what I think is possibly the coolest "I have to miss the next round" excuse ever. He was part of the aerial acrobatics and aerial demonstrations before the IndyCar race at Iowa Speedway this past summer. Which I gotta say, Aaron, I don't know about some of the interviews that you did over the European side of things, but I think in terms of a driver saying, oh, I'm not going to be here for the next race, that's got to be the best excuse I have ever heard.
Yeah, that's a pretty good excuse. I don't think when we interviewed anyone said no. So I think most of the drivers that were in contention in the European Series are here, and I think there are more European drivers than the American drivers here. So the Europeans seemingly dominating, good, as we should. The only American in the top 10 right now is Ryan Odo. And yeah, pretty much from 11th downwards, then you start getting the American drivers. So you know, just saying that Europe might be ever so slightly a lot better than the Americas. Don't know about anyone else. As Barry and Kirakopoulos go side by side into turn 1, that looked like a very easy move for the Swiss driver, and then it didn't. As we came out of the CNRSs, and Barry just retook that place with relative ease.
I can sense a lot of salt there from what you just said a couple of moments ago, Aaron. So I gotta say, if you have any complaints about the Americans running in this series, you can send a letter into us here. The address is going to be 1775 to 1783 Independence Way, but nevertheless, look at some battling here. That's Franco Sanchez going side by side with Andres Friedrich. Those two drivers running in 8th and 9th as it stands at the moment, running a little bit in their own pack, as we've got Bjorklund and Richard a little bit farther behind. They may start to get dicey, though. They're still going to be side by side, hang down into turn number 8. Friedrich on that outside line, going to get shuffled out by Franco Sanchez.
Well, speaking of independence, we wanted you guys gone anyway. You were taking up too much space and money, so, and we burnt down the White House, so you know that's a bonus. We did it for a prank, so. But anyway, back on to the things that do matter. This is still a fairly close battle for what looks like to be 8th place at the moment, just being held on by Franco Sanchez, as Friedrich trying to claw back some of the places that he lost earlier on, and it looks like he's going to go for that move into turn 1 as Odo.
Oh, no, Odo!
Going for a spin into turn 1. I don't think that was contact, as he's fallen behind Barry and Kirakopoulos. Potentially Iani now as the Italian trying to go around the outside. I don't know if he's going to manage to get the place. He's got the slipstream from the cars ahead. There's a good possibility, but Odo surely going to be aggressive on the brakes. And yes, he is. Manages to just about stay in 6th, but Iani not happy with that one at all. Wonder why. I didn't see anything wrong from Odo there. I don't think it was contact. I just think this was all by himself as we head into turn 1. And yeah, just all by himself. And oh dear. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was talking about the Americans being worse than the Europeans, and well, that's all I'm going to say on that one.
I feel like if I keep this going any longer, one of us is going to get punched. But anyways, let's go back to the racing action. Tough for Odo, though. That was a very easy mistake to make in some of these Radical SR10 races. Hit the curb on the inside, and he just had a one-way trip for a spin. It's going to help out Barry, but it's not going to help him out enough. He's going to hope for a miracle to happen between now and the end of this race, coming up in just 9 minutes' time, as Lasse Sorensen and Matt Sjöström-Bakken go side by side here, heading into turn number 1. Looks like a simple swap-a-roo between the two Norwegian drivers, both of them drivers for IGL Coatings. So it looks like they're just having a quick little swap-a-roo of positions. They're 5.7 seconds back at Christoph Lipp. At this point in time, though, I think that is mainly down to a little bit of championship aspirations, because as it stands currently, I believe Lasse Sorensen would inherit P2 in these World Finals. So that'd be a very good result for the driver of the number 80 car. Let's see how things shake out in the final 8.5 minutes of this race. Look like a simple swap of positions for the IGL Coatings teammates heading down into turn number 1. What do you make of that, Aaron?
Yeah, I think that was pretty much exactly what you said, giving Sorensen the best chance that he can to at least finish high up there, as Sjöström-Bakken, of course, initially had a good first race, but then got caught up in that incident, which just put him all the way down the order and in 15th, so he's not really in contention up at the top of the standings, but he is having a very good race himself. Of course, had an amazing qualifying, putting himself onto the front row of the grid, but unfortunately could not challenge Christoph Lipp into turn 1, which allowed Christoph to run away with it and now build up this eventual 6-second lead that he currently has. And there is Sjöström-Bakken very clearly lifting off and not fighting with Sorensen, because at this stage in the race it's not really worth it. And Sorensen also going very slippery into that first corner, as here we go, Friedrich still attempting to overtake Franco Sanchez, and he's going to have a good opportunity coming down the Retroposta, and round the outside is not the ideal way to go, but if you can make it work, like I said earlier on, it turns into the inside for the next few corners, and it gives you a great chance to gain that place, but it's just not going to work out for Friedrich on this occasion, as Björklund now trying to gain that place on the German, as he's got an amazing run through turn 4 and is now nearly a full car length ahead of Friedrich, and now briefly was an entire car length ahead, but had a bit of an awful entry going into turn 6, and Friedrich gaining that place back, as Richard now going up the inside of Björklund as well, but the inside line for Björklund there surely is going to work, and he can keep a hold of that place. Very hard battling between all 4 of these cars, but there's still no position changes at the moment.
And it looks like most of the field has settled into a groove for the final race, approaching now the final 6 minutes of these World Finals. Most of the field kind of forming their own little clique, so to speak. It reminds me of my middle school days, so I will swiftly move on before I start sharing some very bad stories of my middle school years. Here's Gordon Howe currently leading John Bentley, those two drivers running 12th and 13th at the moment. They're effectively in no man's land, as they are a couple of seconds back of the pack in front. And speaking of a pack in front of them, that's Andres Friedrich Sanchez and just a whole hornet's nest of race cars involving Kim-Andre Björklund and Ryland Richard as well. Now Ryland Richard looking to try and get a move done around the outside, going on to that back straightaway, trying to get a past Kim-Andre Björklund, looking any sort of way that he can, nearly running into the grass on the inside, nearly running into the grass on the outside, but Ryland Richard feeling really racy in the number 69 Flying Eagle Motorsports car, looking to shuffle back at Andres Friedrich as nearly 3 wide, coming out of turn number 5 into 6. Richard looking to get that 2-for-1, 3-for-1 deal in the span of just a couple of corners. Looks like he's going to have to settle for the 2-for-1, as now Kim-Andre Björklund fighting back on that inside line, making contact, hip check to Ryland Richard. Richard maybe going to get shuffled at. He's still holding strong on the inside line. Through turn number 9, looks like they finally single file out, as you have a big sideways snap from Kim-Andre Björklund. That gives the opportunity for Ryland Richard to get past again. Look at Andres Friedrich now trying to get past Richard, who's mega sideways coming out of the corner through turn number 11. Side by side now into Jungsau. Friedrich has that inside line, and Friedrich going to get the move done. For the time being, though, they're onto that start-finish not so straight away, so Andres Friedrich may end up dropping back behind Ryland Richard, as we see some fighting going on involving Dennis Kyriakopoulos, Ryan Odo, and James Berry.
Yeah, these are the final big boy positions to play for really in this race, as Sorensen and Gerstenbakken, of course, are not really going to fight one another. So no chances really of an incident there. So these guys are all fighting for 4th place. Kirikopolis would love to finish this high up, I think, as Odo looked for a move there as he's drifting his way through turn 4 and could have gotten a good exit, but just, I think, got too a bit trigger happy on the throttle and nearly lost the car. Good car control to keep it pointing in the right direction, as Barry just gaining a little bit of time on these two as they were briefly fighting. As Iani's also in this fight, just a few car lengths behind. But that battle with Sanchez, Richard and Bjorklund and Friedrich all getting very, very hairy. And it also goes to show how close the pro field is. As you'd think Friedrich, someone who was fighting for the championship the entire season long, would breeze past those guys. He's not. He's actually really struggling to get past all three of them.
I think there's a lot of reasons as to why that is the case, Aaron. Just because of the track temperatures as well. I mean, looking through at the moment, it's 116 degrees at Interlagos. Now, side by side between Kyriakopoulos and Odo, hang down into turn number 1. Is Kyriakopoulos going to get the move done on Odo? Yes, he does for the time being. Odo going to look to fight back in that number 15 car, the 19 of Kyriakopoulos, getting that move done to slip his way up into the final top 5 spot for now. However, they're going to go onto the back straightaway. Odo going to look to try and fight back. A little bit of contact made between the two of them, hang down the back straightaway off into turn number 4. Odo on that inside line. Battle as late breakers between these two racers. One's an American, the other's from Switzerland, and one of them just went off the track. That right there was Kyriakopoulos making a brief detour, dipping 2 wheels off into the dirt, but he's still there to fight back. Odo now finally getting that move done on Kyriakopoulos. I think there may have been a moment involving Alexander Scaret as he and Gonzaga are battling hard for 15th and 16th right now. Coming to the end of this race, though, Aaron, now 2 minutes left on the clock for not just this race, but the World Finals here for 2024.
Yeah, to wrap off what has been a very close and intense season. Unfortunately, it's not been a close and intense battle for the lead in either championship, unfortunately. But that just goes to show, you know, how quick Lip and Euler, both respective drivers, have been. And I'm not sure. I mean, Barney's waving the white flag, but I think it's going to be awfully close, as they're doing about 1 minute 29s at the moment. And when he crossed the line, we had about 1 minute 30 left. So keep an eye on that. That's we might get one extra lap. I don't think it'll make too much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. But we are on the white flag, technically, if Barney is correct, and we'll find that out. As Richard has come into the pits, I wonder why that must be. I'm guessing that's a drive-through for him. Too much contact, too many off-tracks, and it was. So I think a few other drivers have had to serve a drive-through as well. So some drivers struggling here at Interlagos for that incident limit. But if we are on the last lap, then it will be a fairly easy one for Christoph Lip.
Yeah, it is going to be very close. Thankfully for him, he's got nearly 7 seconds in his back pocket to maybe lift off the gas a little bit and take it easy and just bring this car home. Not have to worry about another lap, because regardless of how it stands at the moment, he's set to become your 2024 Radical Sim Racing World Finals champion in the pro category. Coming out of Zhongzhou for the last time in this race, Christoph Lip has driven absolutely brilliantly. He won in VIR earlier on. That set himself up for a really good day here, and he's going to weave across that start-finish line to become your 2024 Radical Sim Racing World Finals champion in the pro division. Sorensen and Gerstenbakken going to finish 2 and 3. Looks like Sorensen going to be able to grab second position from this man, James Berry, who has to be kicking himself. He had a really good shot of maybe winning it at VIR earlier on today. Didn't really work out. Put his eggs in the basket of Interlagos. However, by the time he picked up that basket again, he realized all the eggs were cracked and he was in for a world of trouble here today. Ends up in 4th. Looking at a fight, though, involving Scarrett and Gonzaga. This may be a fight all the way to the line between these two, battling for the final position inside the top 15. Is it going to be Scarrett or is it going to be Gonzaga? He's slowly reeling him in. It looks like it's going to be Alexander Scarrett, the IGL Coatings driver in the number 4 car. The lowest of the finishers for the IGL Coatings team. However, Sorensen going to be very happy with that teamwork with himself and Matt Jestrenbakken to be able to take second, I believe, in the World Final standings. And that's going to pay a lot, as much as the Germans, the German duo of Tom Euler and Christoph Lipp, are going to become your World Final champions, and in doing so, picking up a 1-year subscription to RaceData.ai and an Omologado Radical Tifosi watch provided by Radical Motorsports. P2 and P3 is also going to give you a 6-month subscription to RaceData.ai in the process, so still a pretty good day for some of those drivers who may have come close to the championship but didn't really get the job done. But one driver who got the job done, leading that Lipp train in lucky number 13, is Christoph Lipp. He has the number 13 on his race car, but he was number 1 here today, taking both wins, taking both poles, and taking the World Finals win. He finishes 6.8 seconds farther up the road to last save. Sorensen, Max Jestrenbakken, his teammates, going to round out your podium in 3rd. Then we have James Berry in 4th, Ryan Odo in 5th, Dennis Kyriakopoulos going to finish in the 6th position, Myron Ayandi going to finish behind in 7th, Franco Sanchez, Andres Friedrich, Kim Andre Björklund going to round at your top 10. Then we have Gordon Haug, Sally Reitinen, Rylan Richard, John Benlid, Alexander Scarrett, George Gonzaga, Cadel Larson, Mike Buson, and rounding out your field is going to be the 19th place runner of Eric Harmon. Got involved in an incident earlier on in the race, picked up some major damage, and left 19 laps ago. So it left very early on into this race. Gonna have to settle with a really rough result here today. But Aaron, it's a brilliant day of racing action. From start to finish, it was incredible, both with the European and America's Championship. Thoughts on that race that we just had? It wasn't as hot of a contested race that we had at VIR earlier on, but that was still pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was very, very exciting, especially in that mid-pack in the end. And, well, both of our winners in both championships, very, very deserving. They were just absolutely rapid in both races and very, very dominant as well. And I also just took a look at the watch because I haven't actually even seen it yet. And also I took a look at the price. 400 quid. Oh my god, I didn't think it was going to be that expensive, but oh my lord. So this is a message to Tom Euler and Christoph Lipp. If either of you don't like your watch and you want to give it away, my Discord tag is in the Apex Racing TV Discord. Please hit me up. I would quite like that watch. It looks really, really nice. Yeah, thank you.
Well, at the risk of there being like an eBay trade going on here in the commentary booth, I will take the honors of interviewing our pro champion and race winner here, that being Christoph Lipp, who I think I just dragged into the commentary booth as he was having a conversation with Ryan Odo. Sorry about that, Christopher, but welcome here into the commentary booth, and congratulations on your World Finals victory. Talk us through the racing that we had both here at Interlagos a couple of moments ago and VIR earlier on.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, I'm super happy now. After that big pressure, it was really hard. 2 races. My target was to be on the pole position, which I made for both races, because that was super important to get that extra point. And then, yeah, you need to be fast and you need a little bit of luck. I mean, you have seen what happened to Ryan, unfortunately, in the first race. I think he could have been a hard battle. He was also quick in the second race, so yeah, you need pace and you need luck, and yeah, fortunately I had both of it today.
Well, I mean, regardless of whether or not it was down to luck or just a whole lot of pace from start to finish, you're still going to be the World Final champion. So how does it feel after the hard-fought show in both of these races to finally hear the words World Final winner?
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, honestly, I have practiced more than ever for these 2 races. I spent a lot of time getting to the best pace I could, and I was pretty nervous today. I felt it, and so yeah. But now it's a big drop of pressure, and I'm super happy.
Yeah, I'm sure you are delighted, not only with the fantastic prizes that you won in the process, but just besting some of your competitors that you've been racing all season long, well, all season for the 2024 European Championship and all day long, it feels like, from your perspective, behind the wheel. And now this is going to do it for the 2024 Radical Sim Racing season, but we still got the action with the Esports Cup, so are we going to see you on track on Fridays as well?
Yeah, I think if there are nice and good tracks, I will come back. I don't like every track, but when there is a good track, then I'll definitely drive. I think the next one is Road America, and yeah, probably be there.
Looking through right now, gotta pull up the schedule. Yes, you are correct. It is going to be Road America next week, then Sebring, and this very track, Interlagos, to bring that season to a close. So I'm sure Aaron and Jay, Gregory, are going to be delighted to have you as a part of the grid for those races. But Christoph, before we let you go and celebrate not just a fantastic day behind the wheel, but a World Finals win as well, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yeah, shout out to my wife. I think she was watching on YouTube, so yeah, greets to her, and to all of the guys on track. It was a great season, was hard battles. I said it before, everyone in the grid is super fair and super fast. James, Andreas, and all of the other guys I could mention. It was a cool season, and yeah, thanks to everyone.
And thank you, Christoph, for joining us in the commentary booth, and congratulations on being the 2024 Radical Sim Racing World Finals Pro Champion. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
And that right there was Christoph Lipp, grabbing both victories in the process, and overall a very good show from him. Now, Aaron, we got some drivers still waiting in the interview waiting area, that being Lasse Sorensen and Ryan Oda. Not entirely sure if Sorensen is there at the moment. He's currently on deafen in Discord, so gonna maybe see if he undeafens himself, and then if he does, I'll let you have the honors of interviewing the second place World Finals finisher when everything is said and done from today. And if he doesn't unmute himself, I'll let you do the honors of interviewing Ryan Oda, who, I gotta imagine, as Christoph said, if he wasn't involved in that incident at the beginning of the race with Sorensen, kind of awkward that they're in the interview waiting area together, he may have been a driver that we definitely have to keep our eyes on. But it looks like Sorensen is not going to undeafen himself. So, Aaron, would you like to have a chat with Ryan Odo?
I mean, maybe Sorensen's just a bit shy. Maybe he just doesn't want to talk to Ryan. I don't know. Maybe we'll drag him up in undeafen. I don't know, but we'll just pick Ryan. Why not? Welcome to the booth, Ryan. It definitely was not an easy 2 races for you out there today, but surely you still had fun, especially in that Interlagos race. It looked like a very, very difficult one.
Yeah, I still had plenty of fun. Turn 1, lap 1 was definitely a big disappointment, but in my mind, the bigger disappointment was that Lucas Vieira couldn't join us. I would have loved to battle with him throughout the finals. He was very fast, and I think it would have just been amazing to see him, but I think he had something for work that stopped him from coming.
Yeah, it's a shame that we couldn't get all the competitors here today, but nevertheless, it was still a decent performance by you, especially at Interlagos. So, you know, are you a bit frustrated that you couldn't have fought a bit more, especially with the likes of Christoph Lipp at VIR?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, especially in VIR, that I didn't even get a chance to battle with anyone. With Interlagos, I'm kind of happy with my performance. I'm definitely mad at myself for running out of talent through the Senna S's. I think that's the name. And yeah, just disappointed. I think I could have done better if I had more time to prepare, I think. I don't know, but I had lots of fun. I hope everyone else did as well. And I definitely had fun battling with everyone.
Yeah, in the end, it did look like a lot of fun battling out there. And we're just going into, the next season into 2025. If we do this all over again, will we be seeing you coming back, returning for the Americas series once again?
Oh, I'm sure you'll see me come back, definitely. I'm definitely going to be bringing a couple more teammates into the fray, especially maybe even in the European, if I can get that one guy convinced to join. And there's probably going to be some changes. I hope one of those changes will be speed. So I'll be up there battling with Vera instead of just hanging back in second place for most of the time in that championship.
Well, that's what every single driver hopes for. We all want to be quicker than one another.
Definitely.
And yeah, I imagine you'll be putting a lot of practice in over the next few months, as anyone would be. But thank you for coming and having a quick chat with us, Ryan. And before we let you go and wrap off this season, anyone you want to give a mention or shout out to?
I'd like to give a mention to my whole entire family for supporting me throughout this journey and just encouraging me. I would like to thank you guys for doing an amazing job commentating, and I would like to thank the drivers for putting up an amazing fair fight, as well as I would like to thank my spotter for helping me throughout this journey.
Well,
final thank
on.
you is to Vieira for pushing me to become a better driver, because he definitely did that throughout the Americas Championship.
Well, I'm sure they all will appreciate the kind words, as do we. I can imagine Ron is probably blushing right now. But either way, thank you for coming and having a chat with us, Ryan, and I hope to see you back again next season.
Thank you, you too.
And that right there was Ryan Odo. That was a little bit unnecessary there, Aaron, but that is the only other interview that we're going to be doing to wrap up this broadcast. A day of racing action, 3.5 hours on the air. It feels actually 3 hours and 15 on the air, but still a wonderful day of racing action. 4 races and 3.5 hours on the air, whatever it is, just flew by like it was absolutely nothing. Aaron, before we wrap things up, what are your final thoughts on this World Finals, the European Championship season, and all the stuff going on in the Radical Racing world?
Well, it was a very entertaining European Championship, and definitely hope to be coming back and doing it again next season. And I do hope that potentially we can maybe get a bit of a closer race next year in the World Finals. But hey, it's still very deserving of the 2 winners, Lip and Euler. Shame we couldn't talk to Tom, but I imagine he's probably off celebrating somewhere.
And maybe even cracking open an adult beverage. I certainly wouldn't rule that out. He put in a very good drive, as did Christoph Flip, as did all of the drivers. Despite the fact that it wasn't the knuckles out, bare knuckle fist fight that we have seen in the past in the Radical Sim Racing world, it was a brilliant day of racing action, just seeing some of the Radical Racing's best battling out and battling for some really good prizes in the process as well. Gotta say, I'm joining you there, Aaron. I really hope to be a part of the 2025 Radical America Series. The 2024 season was incredibly exciting to follow, and I'm sure 2025 is going to be even more exciting than that. The Radical SR10s on iRacing kind of feel like my broadcasting home, it's how I first started off here at Apex Racing TV. They hold a soft spot, and based off the racing action that we saw here today, hopefully the viewers tuning into this broadcast here on Apex Racing TV found a way to enjoy these SR10s as well. And speaking of the action here on Apex, got a whole lot of stuff coming in and day out that gives you more of a reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action here on Apex Racing TV. But as for the 2024 Radical Sim Racing World Finals, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Aaron Smith joining me in the commentary booth, and Samuli Kuma doing a fine job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.